TFNB, your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoke Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
And here we go on a Monday, and good afternoon. Hope you had a great weekend. Man, it rained like hell around here for I don't know if it does rain in hell because it's hot, but it was quite the night. Thank goodness it appears everybody is okay. 35 through Waco was underwater in the south part of town, and it is just one of those weeks we're going to have in the month of June. I'm David Smoke with Craig Smoke. We do appreciate your time and a lot to get to again, Craig. Wake up today, get a workout in, get ready for the show, start working on the guest, etc., which we had some of that planned yesterday. And the Big 12 has now themselves filed what they want, a ruling. They want, and here it is right here. This is from everybody that covers college football. Lawsuit against Tech seeking court approval to sanction the school over Brendan Sorsby. The conference wants to impose penalties against the Red Raiders, but they'd like a judge to grant those powers, which you used to not need. Business has picked up, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, hello, everybody. Hope you all had a good weekend and enjoyed all the sports offerings and whatever else was out there to consume this weekend. But glad to have you with us on another start to the week, another Monday, and another show where, yeah, there's some more things to talk about surrounding Texas Tech and this Brendan Sorsby story. And I know at the end of last week you were talking about how you just kind of wanted to move on from the story, or we're getting a little bit tired of it. And I could not have disagreed more, because I find it to be really interesting. And I think especially this time of year, give me as much of this story as you want to give me up until like the start of the season to carry us over. But I do think this is taking an interesting turn, even for you, who maybe was getting a little bit tired of where we found ourselves after 2 or 3 days of kind of the same thing sort of being true. Now this is a new chapter and a new wrinkle for sure. And so, yeah, very interesting move by the Big 12 that just keeps this story in the headlines. And I will say, to your point, it was kind of nice there for a couple of days, Friday night, once I got home, Saturday and Sunday, to just not be thinking about this because we did spend so much time talking about it. But hey, I refreshed my brain, recharged, and so I'm ready, blank slate, to go 5 days on this again this week if we need to, and we might just need to. It filled up all of last week, and the way this week's starting, it might fill up this week. So as far as this in particular goes, I mean, the Big 12, in the simplest of terms, seems to be all on the same page when it comes to not liking the Brendan Sorsby decision, not agreeing with the Brendan Sorsby decision, and feeling as though they should have the power to, in some way, shape, or form, sanction or punish Texas Tech as a result of the Brendan Sorsby decision. And I think that's a separate conversation on whether or not Texas Tech deserves punishment from the conference, if they did anything egregious enough to warrant something like that. Because, again, I think the fault mostly lies at the feet of this judge who made this decision. Now, you can pick apart Tech's response to all of this, and we have to some degree, but this is just simply the Big 12 wanting to be able to control itself as a conference and be able to levy penalties as it sees fit, and to not be sued out of being able to do what they feel is their right against one of their members. And I think if you're a Texas Tech fan and you just look at it from this specific example, then yeah, you probably hate the Big 12, or you don't agree, or whatever, you don't like it. But I think big picture, if you're just looking at, should a conference be able to enforce a penalty on its member without getting like preemptively sued or threatened? Because let's remember, that's what happened last week. There was talk about the Big 12 getting together. There was talk about them talking. There was talk about the fact that all of them seemed to be on the same page, that they did not like that ruling, but it was Ken Paxton who came out initially and said, if y'all dare do anything, here's what I got for you. And even putting out there like $200 million in potential penalties and all of that. And then right afterwards was, here's Jeffrey Kessler. If y'all dare do anything to us. And so I think the Big 12 just called their bluff. They're clearly not going to back down. Texas Tech, I don't imagine, is going to back down either. So, yeah, this is going to get very interesting. But on the surface, I do agree that the Big 12 should be allowed to maneuver how it wants. So I'm very interested to see where this lands, because it already feels like some of the authority has been taken out of the hands of the schools and the conferences, and it's now just being delegated in courtrooms. So here's the Big 12 saying, no, we get what was said, but we still reserve the right, according to our bylaws and according to what we've done previously, to be able to do this if we so choose to. So, yep, get ready for more hours, more legal discussion, and I'm interested to see where this goes.
I had somebody that I thought we had lined up for today at 5 o'clock who's an attorney, law firm, teaches law at a Division I school. He sent me a note, an email. He now is no longer at this school. He still teaches there part-time. He now works at a firm that is representing the NCAA against Brendan Sorsby, so he had to walk away from that. Now, who is the firm that's representing the Big 12? Sidley Austin Law Firm, known among those in the business as the biggest and best law firm, not in the country, but in the world. So the Big 12 says, okay, you got Kessler, you got the state of Texas. This is what we're going to do. Let's get into what this is all about. You mentioned it. The Big 12 should have the ability to make decisions in the best interest of the conference based on membership opinion. Here's part of what was released today. During the week prior to filing this complaint, Texas Tech communicated its intent directly to the conference to field Sorsby in conference football games. Though Texas Tech has been asked by the conference and many university presidents, athletic directors, and other representatives of the Big 12, member institutions to choose not to field Sorsby and have asked him not to choose to field Sorsby, in conference games. Texas Tech has not agreed to such request. Also, the Big 12 and its member institutions have no interest in being required to endorse or even appearing to endorse unethical and indeed unlawful conduct that strikes at the heart of athletic integrity. Those are some of the things inside of this, and there's other parts to get into as well, including the Big 12 showing what, in fact, they can do, which we discussed last week, to an institution, to a member, based on the rules within membership of the Big 12.
I'd be interested to know if Ken Paxton didn't come out the way that he did and Jeffrey Kessler didn't come out the way that he did, all on the same day and within hours of each other, of what the Big 12 would be saying, what the language of this would be. But this is positioned as being pretty much just in direct response to the threats from Tech is what this is. This isn't necessarily even them going out on their own. I mean, the league filed a federal lawsuit on Monday seeking both a declaratory judgment and injunctive relief to allow the league the authority to use its bylaws to potentially punish Sorsby, potentially being the key word there. But yeah, I mean, it goes into the fact that Tech basically said, you can't do this or else we'll sue you. And so this is partly in response to that. I think that probably just, if anything, motivated them even further to pursue potential punishment. Maybe it poured a little gasoline on what was a smaller fire, and now they're like, oh, really? So you're going to dare us and tell us what we can or cannot do now? Okay, well, then guess what? We're going to move forward, and we're going to get even bigger about this. I kind of feel like that's probably what happened here. So, yeah, I mean, regardless of what your opinion is on the merits of either side, Texas Tech is defending and drawing a circle around Lubbock, Texas, and putting their defenses up and saying, hey, we know y'all don't agree with us, but we're doing what we feel is best for ourselves and for this young man in particular. And they made that very clear last week. And if y'all try to affect that, we're going to sue you guys, and we're going to bring the Texas government into it. And the Big 12, I think in general, should know whether or not it has the ability to handle something like this and do something about it. So they were exploring that regardless. And obviously with all 15 non-Texas Tech members on the same page of them needing to do something. But then you throw that threat in there, and now it's like, okay, all right, yeah, we definitely need to prove that you can't just threaten to not allow us to be able to do anything. I think that's the bigger point that's going to be proven by them one way or the other in this lawsuit.
Before we get to anything other states' attorney generals have done today, here's from David McKenzie Law, and he's fantastic at breaking things down. The Big 12 has gone to federal court to ask permission to have a conviction. There was a time when a conference could simply disapprove of a player who bet on his own team's games. Now it needs declaratory judgment first. The Texas Attorney General's threatening letter to the Big 12 was an unforced error of the first order. Strip it out, and there is no lawsuit because there's no justiciable controversy. A conference privately mulling a sanctions vote isn't a case, it's a meeting. The Attorney General's $200 million per se antitrust threat in what manufactured the ripeness of what happened today handed the Big 12, among others, they took it and they hired a law firm, and this now has become something that Ken Paxton, perhaps an unforced error. The attorney generals, of course, at various states of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Utah, which we'll get to in a moment. This now is fight fire with fire.
Yeah, and I'm sure Ken Paxton will be ready to fight. I mean, that dude fights all the time. He's always picking fights. He's always getting into fights. And typically he somehow squirms his way into being on the right side of those things ultimately, even when there's tons of evidence against him to the contrary. Now, I don't know if the way Texas government has worked as of late will play into his favor in this particular case, especially when you've got other states and other attorney generals involved. But, yeah, I mean, he jumped out and popped off and preceded anything by the Big 12 outside of the fact that they were meeting, which is not against the law and is not unusual, especially when you've got a national story of this level that's surrounding a member institution. So unforced error, I mean, we'll see what the end result is and whether it was an error that we'll remember or if it's something that we just move on from. But yeah, right now it looks like it was a bit of an unforced error because you basically dared them and not even so much dared them. You just flat out told them what they weren't going to be allowed to do or else. And they said, okay, sure, Ken Paxton, we'll call that bluff, and here we go. The start of next week, in a couple days, we'll all enjoy our weekend. We'll have some more meetings. We'll talk further to all our legal people throughout all of our 15-member institutions, and we'll go from there. And as I know you're going to get into, there's various states now that have jumped into this and made comments on it. So, Ken Paxton maybe a little bit over his skis, and I think it remains to be seen on how much of that was maybe prodding from a Cody Campbell or what led Ken Paxton to feel like he could just jump out there and start barking. But, his barking has been met by some responses now. And so it looks like we're going to get deeper into this thing. And, I'm fascinated.
It is. You mentioned Paxton, the Attorney General for Texas. We heard from the Attorney General from Oklahoma on Friday. Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach, the Big 12 should not be intimidated by the Texas Attorney General's office. The Kansas Attorney General's office stands ready to assist the Big 12. That was one release from earlier today. There is that right there. Also, then later on this afternoon, Utah's Attorney General backs the Big 12. A third Attorney General, this one from Utah, sent a letter to the Big 12 backing the league's potential sanctions, criticizing Ken Paxton and his office, legal threats to the conference. The harm from Texas Tech's proposed course of action is not merely legal, it is structural.
And we had somebody point out on Friday that the Oklahoma Attorney General, whenever he jumped into the fray, which was the first politician outside of Paxton to say something, and he jumped on the side of the Big 12 and said, bring it on, basically. We had somebody in chat mention, well, don't forget, guys, that this Oklahoma AG is running for election. Well, that applies to Ken Paxton, too. He's trying to become the next senator in Texas. So he's also running for election as well. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of that this next few months. A lot of these guys will be talking about, or however long this story lasts, where that could be the case. But I just wanted to point that out as well for they're running for election. They're trying to bark and make some noise. Well, Ken Paxton is as well. So I think to have some other political folks from other states jumping in is definitely of note. And the fact that you've got other Texas schools is interesting. I mean, not just a couple, you got 3 other Texas schools that are involved here. So they're kind of in a weird spot, I would imagine, although clearly on the side of the Big 12, based on what all's been revealed, it's 15-1. 15 of the 16 feel like there should be at least the ability to punish Texas Tech. If not, they should punish Texas Tech, and Texas Tech's on its own island right now, and they're totally fine with that, as they've made clear over the last week with a lot of their responses. They're fine being on their own, and they're fine defending themselves, and we'll see what the next steps to this are. But, yeah, the battle lines have been drawn, and Ken Paxton's not the only one that's barking a little bit from the political realm.
By the way, in some of what was mentioned today in the 47-page filing by the Big 12, was an example back in 2017 when Texas Tech was a part of the conference, and they voted to censor, reprimand, and fine the hell out of Baylor, which I brought up last week about how all the schools at the time, there was 12 and some of them gone, of course. Texas Tech at that time raised no objection to the conference's authority under sections of the bylaws to sanction a member institution for conduct the board determined to be unwarranted.
Yeah, they got a heavy fine, and I think they got most of that money back. It was like a probationary type of situation, so long as you proved that you had made positive steps forward and checked certain boxes, then you slowly but surely got some of that returned to you. If I'm recalling correctly, it's not apples to apples, but I think the main thing is you agree that the conference should be able to punish a school for something that's not necessarily within their legal lines. Like what happened at Baylor, the Big 12 couldn't go and sue them for that in court, but they did show that they could, in fact, punish them. And so you look at this scenario and you go, okay, well, you can't deal with what happened in the courtroom, but you can say, hey, this was a bad look. We're going to punish you for this. Two totally different situations, obviously, what the Baylor story entailed and what the Brendan Sorsby story entails. But the main point being that the conference decided to determine its own punishment, and they levied that how they saw fit. And the majority, if not all members, agreed to that. And Baylor at that point was just not in a position like Tech where they felt enough conviction or really had the ability in any way, because of what that story was, to defend it. They couldn't bog down and try to fight it like Texas Tech is trying to, and they couldn't go get a Texas attorney general like Ken Paxton to defend them over that subject matter. That would have been an awful look for the politician to defend the school who's been accused of this rash of sexual assault. So no politician was going to stick their neck out. This is totally different because it's the gray area of where we are as a game, right? And all of that kind of jazz. So, yeah, the simplest version is, well, Tech was fine with them punishing Baylor when that time was there, and now they're not so cool at the conference being able to do the same thing in principle. So, yeah, that's a valid point, and we'll see how that's argued in court or wherever this goes ultimately.
Here's a note from the NCAA. As expected, the NCAA has filed an emergency motion for an expedited appeal ruling in the Brendan Sorsby and Texas State Court injunction. The association outlines its request for this expedited schedule. Due no later than 14 days after the court reporter files the reporter's record in the court. Sorsby's response brief, due no later than 14 days after filing of the NCAA's opening brief. The NCAA's reply brief, due no later than 7 days after the filing of Sorsby's response brief. And then before the start of the football season, a requested final decision. Now, Michael McCann invited him on the show. He was too locked in to do a lot of things. But let me read you what he said about this. A stay would table Judge Curry's ruling until resolution of the appeal, which could take months, as we have discussed before. And it would mean that Sorsby would remain suspended by the NCAA unless the associating decided to reinstate him. If the NCAA can enforce its suspension, Sorsby has argued he would like the option of entering the NFL the supplemental draft, which is deadline of June 22nd, which is really close, a week from today, to notify the league. The league is under no obligation to allow a supplemental draft. So what Michael McCann, what David McKenzie, and many others are saying is that this thing, you expected this today, and we now have it. The Big 12 and the NCAA are both firing their guns back to try to get some decisions. Whether this changes at all, I don't know, but at least giving you an update on what is being said.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very notable. I mean, they're going to fight. They're not going to just lay down and be threatened and just take that for what it's worth and say, all right, well, we're not going to tangle with Ken Paxton or the state of Texas. They're saying, screw that. We're going to fight, and we believe we're on the right side, and we believe we'll prevail. I saw Jay Billis, who I don't always agree with on all subjects, and I don't know what his full record track record is as far as what he's said are his opinions that turn out to be right in the long run as far as like legal cases and everything. So I'm sure he's been wrong a time or two, but I'm sure he's been right quite a bit as well, as a guy with his educational background. And in his little riff that I saw, he said that upon further review, he thinks that this judge's decision will be overturned, or whatever the proper phrasing for that would be, because he saw, like we all did, no freaking justification for why that judge gave him this ruling. Like, that's the part about this whole thing that forget Texas Tech, forget the Big 12, forget, hell, Brendan Sorsby. Like, it all goes back to this judge's decision that opened this can of worms that nobody thought was going to be open. We all thought it was just a no-brainer, and that's what you get for being and dealing in absolutes, I suppose. Although I said every single time we talked about this, like, there's always a chance, right? There's always a chance that like just some judge in some courtroom on some day could do the unthinkable. And sure enough, that's what we saw. But Jay Billis was just somebody I saw out there who has a respectable opinion that seemed to think that, yeah, this judge's decision would not last or stand the test of further tests. So it seems like there'd be a bit of a pinch on Sorsby with just a week till the supplemental draft. But the other catch there is that he's not even necessarily eligible for the supplemental draft. Like, that's been pointed out ever since that was first mentioned, is it's not like you just go online and fill out a form and you're in the supplemental draft. Like, they review it. Like, they could actually say, no, you don't meet the requirements of being in the supplemental draft. Like, that's the other part. So yeah, we have an interesting time here of the next week where if he were to just say, you know what, screw it, hands in the air, all right, I'm done, this is too much, this isn't worth all the effort. Tech and I have on the side agreed that they're going to pay me the bulk of my money just to go away at this point. He'd still have to apply for the supplemental draft and get cleared to be in the supplemental draft. So this ought to be a very interesting week, because I'm sure Tech will have their own response. And I'm sure the Big 12 will have responses to whatever that response may be. And then on the Brendan Sorsby side, you've got to figure out, all right, are you going to sit here and just plow through and just keep fighting the fight to stick around at Texas Tech? Or are you going to kind of see the writing on the wall and maybe be told by your lawyers of, like, Brendan, I think there's a chance if we drag this out, like, it might get overturned. So that's going to be fascinating to see over the next few days of where this turns, or if we're just going to move forward as is and the battle lines have been drawn and they're going to fight, or if somebody wisens up and goes, oh man, I think the best move might actually be to pivot here. But it would have to be a convincing argument for Sorsby, I feel like, because he got his way clearly last week. And part of the deal, I think, for Texas Tech is they don't want to pay him a bunch of money for nothing, right? I mean, they're supporting him and they've said all the right things, but I do think the simplest way to just cut ties, which at this point they've gone too far to go back. And I said that at the end of last week, but if they could come to some agreement of like, hey man, we'll pay you like 3/4 of this, and sorry it didn't work out, and we just wash our hands and we go our separate ways. That would be the simplest thing to just end all of this. But I just feel like everybody's too dug in at this point to do that. So I think the decision really lies in Brendan Sorsby's lap, more so than it does Texas Tech's or even the Big 12's. I feel like he's the one that can bring this to a very short and quick resolution, but is he willing to fall on the sword and just take whatever he can take and go get in the supplemental draft? Or does he feel like, no, I'm gonna play football at Texas Tech. That's all there is to it until you tell me otherwise. We will see that decision. I think think we already know that decision, but we'll see.
Yeah, what I thought might just carry on all the way for Lord. No, this seems like it's kind of building to a crescendo. Based on a lot of still legal maneuvering, et cetera. But it does seem like we might see something that is that may be an end game. It's whoever. I would think a lot sooner than perhaps later. Big 12 Media Days, we brought that up on the 7th and 8th of July, just under a month from today. Also, from a couple of others on the Sorsby ruling, it's still like, even when we had Chad Brendel on Friday about, even if a school gets notification about a player, as we were discussing the Brendan Sorsby when he was at Cincinnati, the NCAA still has to tighten up that damn hole, because, or that loophole, because, well, can they do that? Can they let the NCAA, they let the conference know about what a player or an athlete might be doing? It'd be simple to just put them in a system. The other part of it is it's still a system, the NCAA, that is absolutely just filled with black mold. And they, every time they seem like they try to do something right, it still seems like it's very much what they want, rather than trying to find a resolution that makes it better for everybody that is a part of the system.
I mean, yes, but what are you proposing here? What could they? I mean, I know,
and
you're
not so much about the Sorsby case.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, I know when we talked to Chad Brendel, that was mostly about what did Cincinnati know and when, and I actually think he explained it pretty well.
Yep.
I think there was a frustration on the part of Tech fans who clearly haven't heard that interview and don't know what Cincinnati's actual reaction to all this was. And I even saw some, like, right before I walked in here, actually, I was looking at my phone and I saw, well, what about what Cincinnati did? And I'm like, well, we talked about that 2 days ago, and Chad Brendel laid it all out there. As far as that goes, yeah, like, is there a better way to report these things, or is there a better way to handle that? Yes. Is the NCAA still out there trying to, and like, I think that's the part we learned from Cincinnati is like, hey, they actually, yes, we're aware that he was trying to bet. He got flagged. They approached him about it, confronted him about it, said, what are you doing? Oh, I'm not doing anything. Gave him gambling education and really did all that they were supposed to do ultimately. And then what turned out to be the case was that he was just lying to them. He clearly was gambling. He told them otherwise, because guess what? That's what addicts do. They don't tell you the truth to just openly give you the honesty and, yes, here's my issue. No, they hide it. They go on to other people's accounts. They send money to other people to spend for them and do all the things that Brendan Sorsby has already been proven to have been doing. So I get the whole, well, what about Cincinnati? But I think when you look into it, they're not so much at fault as, if there's a fault, it's just kind of the way the system is, which I think is the point you're trying to.
Yeah,
to
no,
kind of
I
make.
mean, there's a Chad brought this up, and I did traded a couple of things with attorneys. Is that, there's certain things you can't get. You don't have subpoena power.
So when he lies to them, they can't go, no, we're going to pull your phone records and we're going to prove it.
I think that they probably could have gotten a little bit deeper with that. At the same time, that might turned into a legal issue. The point is that you would think that if you're going to have gambling and you're done, which 99.999% of the time has been the case until this one, is that you should also cover your you-know-what by making sure that if, in fact, somebody is flagged or you're alerted to a possibility, rather than back in the spring of this year when the federal authorities and a sports booking company, a sports book, then informed Texas Tech what was going on. Or if it would have been Indiana, or if it would have been Cincinnati, if it would have been UCLA, any of those things. There's always like a little bit of like, why could you not have tightened up this? And I don't know if that will ever happen, because the legal system can get very, very complicated.
Yeah, and there's also privacy laws, and I don't know how much the NCAA can do, and I'm certainly not a defender of theirs, but I think everybody, for the most part, that's not wearing scarlet and black, and even some of those folks are not on the side of Texas Tech here. The NCAA is, I think, doing what it rightfully should be able to do as an organization and enforce penalties on players, especially when it comes to something as big of an issue as gambling is. So, maybe it shines some light on the system could be better, but I'm also not going to like bog down on, well, what could they do better? Because while that is a part of the story, I think it's become pretty clear that this wasn't some like massive cover up on the part of anybody. This wasn't, as I've seen it put out there by far too many people at this point, of, well, Cincinnati knew, and then they like continued to play him and didn't care, and he was just betting, and they didn't. It's like, no, that's not at all what happened. That's absolutely false, and not at all what Cincinnati was doing. Were they aware that he had attempted to bet? Yes. Did they address it with him? Yes. Did he lie to them about it? Yes. And then that's kind of what then they did the gambling education, and they did technically what they were supposed to do. So I don't think there is, and look, if I'm proven to be wrong, I'll eat it on this show, but I don't think right now there's like some smoking gun where it's like, I can't believe Cincinnati's not getting I don't really think that they misstepped all that much.
Chad, I thought if you hadn't seen the segment, you can go back to where we are on 365 Sports, look at it. It does. There's going to be some that like, no, and then there could be some, oh yeah, but it is a very educational segment.
But you can disagree with like they should have done more. It's like, but they did what they could do, and like that's where it gets into, well, what more could be done, and that's the system, and that's not so much like Cincinnati's fault, but like, do we still want to know what Indiana knew? Yeah, I think we've heard less from them than anybody, and that's where this all started. I understand there's a lot of like, well, what about shift the blame, take the flashlight off of us and out of our face and shine it in somebody else's because they were guilty too. It's like that's what a lot of that became at the end of last week. I'm not interested in passing the buck or placing the blame. I just think the decision was awful, and it's led us into a giant mess. That's really what it boils down to.
I'm hoping that whatever all this legal stuff is that we're trying to explain, and of course, I'm admitting right off the top, I'm reading from those who are in the business, in the profession, that it maybe leads to a decision sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, in Omaha, Nebraska, Texas, after getting thumped by Georgia in the opening round on Saturday, is crushing Alabama. That game now is 11-2 Horns as they're going to move on into the elimination part of it. That's where they are today. Bottom of the sixth, they are hammering Alabama, who lost to OU 9-0. So UT, which always seems to struggle in game one, no matter what it is, softball, baseball. So they're going to win. And then tonight, Georgia and Oklahoma will meet at 6 o'clock in a winner's bracket game. West Virginia beaten last night by North Carolina. They're still in it. And then how about Troy eliminating Ole Miss with a win 12-8 Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, unfortunate for West Virginia that they took that loss to the Tar Heels, but a rematch of the first round when they beat Troy 7-5. What was a really competitive game, so it'll be tough, I think, to take the Trojans down twice, but you did beat them already here recently, so that ought to be a very feisty and high pressure game to watch here coming up. I guess that's tomorrow afternoon. So that'll be pretty deep into it by the time we hit the airways. Won't be done, but it'll be pretty deep into the late innings there. So yeah, that'll be fascinating to see who's able to stay alive in that game. And North Carolina's sitting pretty right now. And then, yeah, it's a lot of SEC in that bracket too. So Oklahoma and Georgia ought to be a hell of a game. Both put up a lot of runs so far. And then, as you mentioned, Texas is just spanking Alabama. So Bama's going home tonight. That's what we do know for damn sure. They are going home tonight. And then Texas will keep it going for at least a little while longer. But yeah, I watched a ton of the College World Series over the weekend amongst the various other things that were going on. A really big sports weekend when all was said and done. But yeah, I watched probably more baseball than anything else and really enjoyed it, even though not really the greatest games ultimately. Like some good drama here and there, but not a whole lot of like really high pressure games. A lot of just like, all right, this one kind of looks like it's already over. Or
well, West Virginia, North Carolina was tight, and then the Heels just kind of got in it. They scored a couple of runs, and then they added one too.
But like Oklahoma, Alabama, that wasn't 9-0.
Yeah, 7-1 Georgia.
Georgia over Texas. I mean, that wasn't very much in doubt. But no, it was good. I enjoyed it. I love seeing these teams once they get to Omaha and get to this stage. I like the super regionals and stuff as well. But this is fun. Look forward to watching it the next few days.
How about this note? You always say, where do they get this information? Of course, everything now is inside of computers and whatever else. Rob Anderson, who's the media relations director at Creighton, who does a great job with all of what's going on at the World Series, because Creighton, that's where they are, from Omaha. Georgia's win against Texas in baseball on Saturday was the first time they'd beaten the Horns in baseball Since 1912, 41,668 days. Of course, they were in separate conferences for 99% of that time. But that was interesting with UT now in what is their third year or into their second year in the SEC. So they just haven't played very much. That I thought that I was like, good God, that's a long, long time, and it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the total games there are. We don't have Winsipedia for baseball, but yeah, I mean, did they play twice in that span or 123 times? I don't know, but made for some good baseball action this past weekend. If you're a Georgia fan, that's for damn sure, and good chance they could end up meeting up again here in the next few days as well, with Texas staying alive, because yeah, there's top of the seventh, but they're up 9 runs right now. So they're feeling good. They're going to stick around in Omaha, book an extra night or two, and Alabama will be heading home. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Georgia's kind of at the root of a lot of these weird SEC sort of historical notes. I mean, really the one that I just think of with them is obviously the Texas A&M thing, where they haven't played at Kyle Field.
Oh, yeah,
They've been like
the Georgia,
nearly damn 20 years.
So Texas had beaten Georgia 3 straight this year, swept them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then of course.
Yeah, I think I saw that actually. Yeah, I was, for some reason I was thinking of Georgia and somebody else, but yeah, no, I remember seeing that.
It's a win by Georgia too, because Texas had gone 5-0, had beaten them up in Omaha as well back in 2004. So it had been one hellacious drought. There's a lot more to get to. We will have Bob Herrig, who's a golf insider on the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. It was the UFC event at the White House. Also, the World Cup. Some interesting news and notes there. In fact, a stunning result earlier today. We'll get into that. And the Savannah Bananas invaded Lincoln and Memorial Stadium in Nebraska. That and more. Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. Trey Wallace today in back-to-back segments. And then Bob Herrig at 4:30. We appreciate those of you in the chat. Hit the subscribe or the like button. Either one, we would appreciate it. Craig Smoak and David Smoak, The Smoke Show on 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. As you get older, maybe late 30s, it could start to creep in. If, in fact, you're one of those 1 out of every 3 or 4 men with symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Could be as simple as your energy's not the same. It could be what gets a tremendous amount of attention, which is your sex drive and or ED, and or if you have sex drive, you're not able to get anything done. So testosterone level can make a difference. If it's too low, it can rob you of a lot of things that you normally just took for granted for many years. Contact Dr. Petty at pettycliniclowt.com. Tell him I sent you. He will then get in touch with you and set up an appointment so you can get your blood work and he can get the results. And then he can get in touch with you and find out, do you need to get into a program? Do you want to get in the program, but help you out if you need it at pettycliniclowt.com.
Broker is your Lennox Premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
The reason that their service is outstanding because the people they have working, behind the desk and the folks working out in the garage, taking care of business. And they give you a date, they give you a time, and they're spot on, and they're professional, they take care of it, and they answer all your questions, and they're fun to work with.
Like Alan Samuels always said, Waco has a lot to offer, and so do we at Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. At TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, Your Bank for Life.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
All right, here we go. This 3 o'clock hour. Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio. Tune in will join us here momentarily. So the Big 12 has released a statement, and here it is. Last night, the Big 12 filed a legal complaint asking a federal court to protect the constitutional and contractual rights of the conference and our member institutions to take actions expressly permitted under our bylaws. The Big 12 has long spoken out about the dangers of sports wagering by student athletes and remains committed to protecting the competitive integrity of the conference and competition. Universities should not field players who have bet on their own team's games in college athletics. The situation is evolving with pending legal matters and the upcoming start of the football season, and the conference hopes for a timely resolution of these issues. The board continues to keep all options on the table.
Yeah, so that just came down in the last 5 minutes, that official statement from the Big 12. So just kind of wrapping up more of what we talked about from earlier. They are digging in and they're preparing for a legal battle, and they are not going to back away, it appears. And from what we could tell, it's 15-1. It's the 15 schools not named Texas Tech feeling that this is the right approach, and that it's Texas Tech, obviously, on their own, who suspected that there would be some pushback and some possible maneuvering by the Big 12 to punish them, which is why they went and rounded up Ken Paxton and also Jeffrey Kessler, who wasn't far away because he had just dealt with the Sorsby story already. So, yeah, they had been in contact, so didn't have to go far to find Jeffrey Kessler hanging around Lubbock. But, yeah, that's their latest official statement here in the last 5 minutes. And what that tells me is that we're in for a doozy of the next few days. And like I said earlier, I think it's a matter of what happens now with the discussions behind the scenes for Texas Tech and Brennan Sorsby. Like, do you feel like this is still worth just, all right, nope, we're going to fight this all the way to the very bitter end, and we may risk where Brendan does lose his eligibility? Or are we just going to say, like, all right, we got to cut the ties here, and he decides I'm going to fall on the sword?
He could do that at any time. And could have at any time. But you're right. You wonder if this now increases the heat or pressure, or just says he says I can't keep doing this, and neither should Tech. Especially with the supplemental draft a week away. So if you're going to try to get into that thing, you got to make that move. So yeah, that's where I think if any action comes from, it's going to be Brendan Sorsby himself deciding, all right, I'm going to pull my name out. I have a hard time seeing that at this point, but that seems the quickest resolution. Otherwise, yeah, get ready for some court battles. Well, Ari Temkin's going to be discussing this tomorrow on Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. And we have Ari? We got Ari. Okay, Ari, in fact, I'm going to be a part of your show tomorrow on what you're doing to discuss the upcoming football season, which seems like now forever away. Hey, man, nice to see you. Thanks for being a part of it. This is fire against fire, Ari. How much damage is this for the Big 12? How much damage of this is also Texas Tech?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the damage right now is between the Big 12, the current members, and the Texas Tech. If anything, I think this is a huge positive for the Big 12 conference because, I mean, look, this was a conference that for years was run by two brands in Texas and Oklahoma, and whatever they wanted was what the league did. And they just didn't want those two brands to be upset. And, I think Texas Tech right now is as good of a brand as the Big 12 has in terms of strength at the top, consistency. And yet here's the Big 12 kind of going to war with them over this decision. So, I think it speaks to just the level of unity and, consensus that is in the Big 12 that Brett Yormark is not necessarily about what is within his opinion or what he thinks, but rather he's about finding consensus. And I think, he's always been able to do that since he's taken over with the Big 12. He probably haven't had issues that were as obvious as this one. But no, I think this is really good news ultimately for the Big 12 because it speaks to, that not one member is above every other member, that 15 members are on one side and feel one way about this certain situation, and the other member is on the other side. The other thing I think is, from a PR standpoint, this looks really good for the Big 12 because really nobody agrees with Texas Tech playing Brendan Sorsby under these circumstances. And so, it's almost as if the Big 12 is sort of the last lifeline that everybody else has towards, Sorsby not being able to play.
And also, Ari, this is a response to the Ken Paxton and Jeffrey Kessler threats from the end of last week, right? Where they said, like, we're hearing you might do something, and just in case you might do that, like, here's what awaits you. We're going to take $200 million potentially and all that. I mean, this is them calling Ken Paxton's bluff, basically, is what it is. And, yeah, man, I guess just get the popcorn ready unless – as we were talking about before you got on here, there's a sudden change of heart in the Sorsby household, which is kind of hard to imagine. Text dug in. So, yeah, man, just kind of, I don't know. What are you anticipating this looking like moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think on the one hand, we have to applaud what Brett Yormark has been able to do since, taking over as commissioner of the league. This is the first time there's been sort of a public spat that pits one member institution against the others, so, and this is not the first time that the schools have disagreed on certain things, right? So I think ultimately Yormark has done a superb job of getting consensus, of keeping, any disagreements in-house and then getting those to get figured out. And yeah, I mean, look, I think right now, nationally, nobody wants Sorsby to play, or at least nobody agrees with the adequacy of the current suspension. So, based on what was reported today was in the composition of the actual filing that went through at the Big 12, I mean, there was talk around, the ability for Tech to be withheld from a Big 12 championship game scenario, which, obviously would impact their ability to play in the college football playoff and, have as successful as a season as they anticipate having. And so, it feels like the Big 12 is in a leverageable position because, they reacted to Ken Paxton and to Texas Tech, right? So they were on the defensive and then had basically this weekend to figure out from a legal standpoint what their recourse was going to be able to do. And so, ultimately, this is some really interesting lawyering. There's some really good case studies here in the art of lawyering and, how you position and what you're supposed to go after. And so it's a really interesting case study in that regard. But how do I think this thing shakes out? I think ultimately Sorsby will end up playing. I do think that they'll come to an agreement on some sort of extended, suspension for Sorsby, and maybe that makes everybody happy, and maybe it still allows for Texas Tech to be in position to play for a Big 12 championship. But at some point, you'd hope that somebody else would stand up and be like, this is not worth it. I'm surprised that Joey McGuire hasn't already done that, and maybe it's beyond him. But it feels like even with Sorsby playing 10 games, I'm not going to pick Texas Tech to win the Big 12. There's just far too much off the going on right now around the program where the psyche of that locker room is going to be impacted, I believe.
Yeah, I think it says a lot that the conference does know how much Texas Tech matters, but they're still saying, but this matters more. We know that you're our best chance at a national title. We know you're our best shot at getting to the playoff, but we still have to like draw a line in the sand. I think that says quite a bit. What have you made of just like, it was a quiet weekend and it was sort of needed after the end of last week and how crazy all that back and forth was. But what have you thought about Texas Tech and just how they've sort of responded and moved throughout the last few days with just some of what's come out on their end? And I know part of it's like, hey, if this was somebody else, it would be different or whatever. But where do you see where they've erred, or maybe where have you agreed with them along this way?
Look, my stance on this from the start was I think the injunction is going to be granted. And I think that's because, the NCAA has no ability to enforce the rules. And I am okay with Sorsby playing under those guidelines. Now, with that being said, I think Texas Tech has handled this extremely poorly. I think up until really this point, Texas Tech has handled this extremely poorly. When the injunction first came to bear and was granted, I think that was the opportunity that Tech had to kind of get out in front of it and to control the narrative to a degree. And they've instead let the narrative control them, and they've been so reactive to everything that's out there. And that's what led to that 22-minute video that came out Friday that I think made them look even worse. It's like when you have kids and like they do something that's wrong and then they like try to say that they didn't do it and then they over-explain when they're guilty. That's exactly what Texas Tech is doing right now. Like they're over-explaining their approach here. So, I think this has been mishandled from a PR standpoint. I think there's probably a few ways they could have gotten out in front of this, like what they did in the video, but did that from the start. I think they shouldn't have brought up, the Joey McGuire stuff mentioning murder. Like that stuff doesn't really matter here. They really should have just leaned into, the addiction and supporting him from the start and not, well, there are no rules and kind of taking the other approach here where you have McGuire in front of the coaches and in front of Tech fans in Houston basically saying like, well, it wasn't murder, So I think the PR piece of this is completely mishandled by Texas Tech. And then for the Big 12, I think, Craig, it's a great point, the fact that they're not just giving in to Tech, even though Tech is one of their top brands, if not the top brand, that has their best opportunity to go far in the playoff and be a consistent winner in the Big 12, which would absolutely, help the conference from a TV rights standpoint, right? Like the Big 12 is incentivized to take the side of Texas Tech, and instead Yormark has done what he's always done, which is get consensus and figure out what makes the most sense for the majority members to get consensus and then try to build consensus. I think that's what great leadership is about, and I think that's what Yormark has done.
Here's a quote from Yormark, and I don't think I've read this one at all, but in an industry that rarely agrees on anything, there is finally an issue that everyone seems to agree on other than Texas Tech University and the Attorney General. Universities should not field players who have bet on their own team's games in college. Pretty simple, but also, 100, not 100%, but for the most part, 99% would agree to that. Yormark here, we've seen him with a lot of the things that he tries to do business-wise. This is a big moment for him, is it not? Not just what they did with realignment, what Bowlesby then did before him, but even the college football playoff, which we can agree or disagree with his stance there on how many teams, et cetera. But this is a moment where he's got to win this not PR battle, but he needs to look strong coming out of it.
Yeah, no, look, and I don't know that any commissioner has ever dealt with something quite like this before. We have seen within the ACC, there is a dissension amongst the ranks, and there's definitely some frustrations within the ACC that you're trying to combat. But here you have a situation. I mean, I'll put it this way: I think if this happens at Georgia, does the SEC side with Georgia, or do they side with Mississippi State and Ole Miss? If this happens to the Big Ten, do they side with Ohio State or Michigan, or do they side, with the majority of members here? If this happens to the ACC with Clemson or Florida State, do they side with Florida or Clemson, Florida State or Clemson, or do they side with the majority here? Right. So I think number one, it is sort of unique for Yormark to be looking at this for what's in the best interest of what's in the best interest of the conference members, not necessarily what's in the best interest of the conference, because the best interest of the conference right now is to have a playoff team and go far to the playoff and to win games. And Texas Tech is that. So I'm not even sure that this is in the best interest of the conference, but it certainly is in the best interest of the other members of the conference and for the sport at large. That's the other thing too, guys, is it's like, it feels like this is the first time that anybody has really been looking out for what's in the best interest of the sport at large. And whereas you have the SEC, the Big Ten talking about how they can spend over the cap and try to figure out a way to get out of the CSC's rules, here we have the Big 12 sort of doing what's in the best interest of the sport at large, because they don't want, despite the NCAA's inability to enforce its own rules, don't feel like this is the way it should go down for a specific player. And yeah, I mean, at some point, you'd hope the Tech would kind of wake up and realize that not only are they in the minority here, that they're fighting a completely losing battle that's going to make them look worse and worse the deeper this goes.
I think that's a great point, Ari, on just finally somebody is doing something for everybody, just except for Texas Tech, unfortunately, for them. But hey, everybody do something for the greater good and not your own conference or your own selfish reasons. And it's like, that's actually what they're doing. That's actually what they're doing right now, or attempting to do. So you mentioned earlier, you think this has an effect on Texas Tech winning the league. Like, what do you foresee as far as Texas Tech just kind of moving forward? Like you think that they're going to lose maybe a couple games now as a result of just all of this turmoil? What does this look like? Are they doing any long-term damage, whether that be within the league, or do you think to maybe their opportunities in the future by reacting the way that they have over the last week or two?
That I'm not sure about. And, I guess I would caution, because, in a world that revolves around money, feels like, nobody's going to forget when you've got the money. But that being said, though, even if this suspension holds and it's just the 2-game suspension that was handed down, by the judge, I think that I am not picking Texas Tech to win the league. I mean, with all the questions surrounding Sorsby and his ability to finish, remember, this is a guy that has not won a game in the month of November in college football since he was at Indiana in 2023. He's lost 11 straight games, as has Cincinnati in the month of November. So, there's legitimate questions about his ability to finish. Now, look, is all of that on Sorsby? No, of course not. But I'm not going to completely divorce him from that either. So I think, if some of his abilities, especially between the ears, are being questioned here, and they certainly should be, just based on, what he's done and then his history as a player, all of the media attention towards him, and it's bad right now. It will die down, but then we get back into media days, it'll percolate back up again. And then when the season starts, same kind of thing. Can he deal with that? Can he deal with the constant criticism, the constant questioning of him? What about the locker room? I mean, I'm sure there are guys that are unhappy that he placed bets on a team that he was on and is now being allowed to play. So, what is the psyche of that locker room if he's allowed to play? I'm sure there are guys that are fine with it. I'm sure there are guys that aren't. So I just think it's an extremely tenuous situation. When you think about the stuff between the lines, that it makes sense that he'd play and they should be really good, but it's all the other stuff, guys, that really plays a large role in the outcome of a season. And I think it's probably one of the more underappreciated things about sports is the off the field stuff, is the relationship stuff, is the locker room stuff. And I think that's going to be dramatically impacted. Now, it could go the one way and they all are galvanized around this and it's us against the world. I can certainly see that. But from where I sit today, it just feels like there's so much noise. There's probably a bunch of different opinions in that locker room. And I think what it leads to is just a really tough battle within that locker room that's probably tenuous at best.
Chad Brendel joined us on Friday to leave it with this, and he covers Cincinnati, and he was very enlightening in a lot of things about where they were or what they know or did know. But one of the things he brought up was that he liked Brendan Sorsby a lot, but he also said that, he cares a lot about what people think about him. And that's the kind of thing that can wear you down. Some people don't give a damn. Some people can just not care. And then there's some that can get eaten up with it, and it can wear you out. So we'll see, because obviously a lot of people have a lot to say. Ari, good luck with it tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow on the show. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Always a pleasure.
Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn with us on this Monday afternoon with what's happening, the Big 12 now and NCAA trying to push the envelope a little bit to see what they can get done.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a very active week on that front. I don't know how quickly some of this will move along legally, but we are less than a month away from Big 12 Media Days. We are like 3-ish weeks out from Big 12 Media Days. Like 3 or 4 Mondays from now, we'll be sitting in
July 7th
Frisco.
and 8th.
So yeah, we're right around that time period. 3 Tuesdays from now. It'll be a Tuesday, Wednesday. 3 Tuesdays from tomorrow, we will be talking about wherever this is at that point in time, and we'll be sitting there amongst all of these representatives from all 16 schools, including Joey McGuire, and I'd imagine Kirby Hocutt will probably be there amongst others as well. So going to be fascinating to see where we are at that point and what the conversation is like, and if this is all sort of blown over or been settled, or if it's still very much a thing and we get the rumblings of, well, they're all meeting over here, and what comes out of those types of things. We know McMurphy and others will be swirling around there, picking up tidbits. And so, yeah, just really interested to see where we are in about 3 weeks at Media Days. But thank you, Texas Tech, for inadvertently giving us this last week and what proves to be probably even more content for the next few weeks surrounding this story. I'm thankful for that part of it, although I know it's not the most fun, especially for Texas Tech folks.
It'll be like this for the rest of the year. It's going to be like this no matter whatever happens, whether the judge's ruling is overturned or legally whatever can happen. No matter, this is going to be eventually, games that maybe decide who's going to be in the playoff. But this is going to be a story that does not disappear, whether Sorsby plays or not. Higher if he does, but Tech will face what will be a large cloud that follows him through the rest of the year. And into the season. Yeah,
I mean, he's definitely, his play will be under the microscope like never before, and there will be a lot of talk about whatever successes or failures he has. But I mean, where's the legal part of this by that point? Are they at war with each other? Is Texas Tech going to boycott Media Days because they're suddenly wrapped up in a court issue with the Big 12? I mean, I'm not trying to get too extreme or too far down the line, but who the hell knows at this point? I mean, the way this is going, I didn't anticipate we'd have Ken Paxton jumping into the fray last week. I didn't anticipate we'd even be talking about this at this point. I thought we'd already be talking about, we'd be in season preview season and talking about whatever random ass rankings and all those types of things. But instead we're talking about this. So that judge's decision, the ramifications of that, I would just love to know what that judge's reaction has been to the reaction. Does this person have any idea of the monster they created? And do they have any idea when they made that decision of what that was going to turn into? Or is it what I've guessed is just somebody who didn't know much about college sports or college football or sports for that matter, and didn't understand that they were making this monumental choice that was going to have a massive ripple effect across the entire sport? I don't know. I would just be curious to understand the rationale there. Yeah, I'm sure he knows everything that's being written, said, and might even be getting, I don't know, if someone's calling him, talking to him or whatever. Well, I'm sure there's a few in red and black slapping him on the back saying, hey, great choice, but maybe not as many as you think. Yeah. When we come back, Trey Wallace has been all over this. He traded a text or a direct message or two with me over the weekend, and he told me, I think it was last night, that the next 72 hours is going to be awfully interesting. Well, the first 24 have been. What is next? He'll join us. Yeah, and the part Ari mentioned we didn't get into that I would like to either with him or moving forward is the part about what the punishment could look like not playing them in the conference title game and some of those options on the table. That could get really interesting. Well, we got an image on that will kind of summarize that. Good point. When we come back, Trey Wallace, Outkick at Fox News. This is 365 Sports. QC Kinetics. Man, thank you, QC Kinetics. I want to help those of you who have been through what I went through for nearly 5 years, where I had a tugging, pulling, almost like arthritic feeling in my right hip that was caused mainly by just a bunch of gristle in my back, or at least that's what I was told. And I had steroid injections, and it would kick the can down the road for maybe 3 weeks if it did it that long. Finally, back in September, after listening to a buddy of mine who's in the broadcast business tell me over and over again about QC Kinetics, his elbows and his wrist, though his elbows and shoulders were constantly in pain. Couldn't really swing the golf club or hit the ball in the ground without pain. Couldn't squeeze a water bottle and take the top off if it was lightly open. And then he went to QC Kinetics, and that was back in 21, and he's been healed and feeling better.
ever since. QC Kinetics, using natural biologics, regenerative parts of inside of your body to help heal your body. I went in September for a consultation. I have had 4 treatments. I still have 1 left, and I haven't used it because I feel great. I ran 2 miles today before doing a little bit of weight work, and I'm not somebody that does a lot of that. Played rounds of golf on Saturday and Sunday morning. A little soreness, but that's to be expected, but no pain, no ache, no getting out of bed day after day after day for 4 to 5 years with that. Man, it is still here. Can you raise your arms? Can you squeeze a bottle of water? Are your elbows, your knees, your wrist, your neck, your back, your hip, is it constantly pain? QC Kinetics can help you out. Here are the numbers with locations in Dallas and Houston, which are our 2 highest viewed cities of watching 365 Sports and the Smoke Show. 972-972-8610. 713-913-5285. Get correction to the pain. No surgery. No heavy medicine. Get rid of that. Kick that out of your system or kick that out of your schedule. No missing work. How much will you feel better? Believe me, I wondered, was this ever going to get any better? It has since September and for the last several months at QCkinetics.com.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Don't gamble on a used car. Get the value of pre-owned without the risk with Car Bravo at Richard Car Motors. Every Car Bravo pre-owned car and truck comes with a no-gamble peace of mind that includes pre-negotiated upfront low pricing, a thorough multi-point inspection, a vehicle history report, a 12-month, 12,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty, a no-obligation 10-day or 500-mile return policy. Get all the value of pre-owned with the peace of mind of new. Shop smarter. Drop in to test drive today or see our selection at richardcar.com.
At Richard Car, we give you more.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
Trey Wallace from Outkick and Fox News has become a regular for us and really enjoy his coverage and also how he goes about doing that. So we traded a DM or three last night, or maybe a text message, and he said, looking for a day to have him on. He mentioned to me that the next 72 hours were going to be awfully interesting. Trey, I brought that up in the last segment, and here we are. Well, the first 24 awfully interesting with what the Big 12 has done today, what the NCAA has done today, and it is just, again, part of this story. Your thoughts about, did the Big 12 fire back with fire against fire?
First off, good to join you guys again. Second of all, was not surprised by the court filing this morning. Kind of figured that was coming. They've been working on that now essentially since midweek last week. So I think the wording of it was a straight rebuttal to what Jeffrey Kessler pointed out in his statement, what the Texas Attorney General pointed out in his statement. And the Big 12 didn't back down. I mean, they essentially said, okay, like, we hear you. We see that you're going to sue us, but we're going to go find out if this thing is legal. And I think what you saw out of their filing and this is key, by the way, in all of this, is they filed in the Northern District of Texas. It's a federal court, a lot different than filing in a district court. So now, in my opinion, I told you last night that I thought it was going to be an interesting 72 hours. Now we wait to see what type of response we get from Texas Tech, Jeffrey Kessler, the Attorney General, because this was a little different. This was not technically the Big 12 suing Texas Tech and their president and Kirby Hocutt, their AD. This was them saying, hey, Judge, we want to sanction Texas Tech. Are you going to give us the room to do that legally by the court system? And if that is the case, if a judge rules that, yes, we will grant you this power, I think all gloves are off, because they're going to try to hit Texas Tech, I think, with a little bit of revenue distribution. Could there be potentially something where the Big 12 is like, okay, any game, and I'm just throwing this out there, I'm not reporting it, so we're just kind of speculating here. Any game that Brendan Sorsby competes in the Big 12, technically that's going to be a forfeit. So like there are different, could there be a postseason ban, aka the Big 12 championship? All options are on the table right now. They had their meeting this afternoon. I talked with somebody just a little bit ago that would know about what went on that meeting, and I will tell you, they feel a bit better that a filing was made in a court and that they could potentially, with the options that are on the table, be able to impose something on Texas Tech.
Trey, I guess first thing, I have a couple of questions just based on what you said there, but if Ken Paxton doesn't come out last week or Jeffrey Kessler doesn't come out last week, what are we talking about today, do you think? Is it wildly different?
I think you would have seen the appeal. See, that's the other thing that's going on here today. The NCAA filed their appeal technically. So they have filed countermeasures. They want an expedited schedule for this. They would like for the appeal to be heard in an Amarillo court, an appeals court, by the 28th of August. So they're asking the court, there's three different things going on at the same time. So they're asking the court here, look, this is what we want. We want an expedited hearing. Also, at the same time, we would like a temporary ruling on this appeal to essentially override what has already been granted, the injunction. So if you really break it down, you've got Brendan Sorsby suing the NCAA at the same time and getting granted that. Same time NCAA is appealing. Same time Big 12 has filed a complaint in a court against Texas Tech and others. So like this triangle is starting to connect here. And if you could tell by the Attorney General statements from multiple states today, and pretty much saying, hey, we back the Big 12 in this, they're starting to get some ammunition for this fight. And I have to wonder, is Texas Tech going to get to a point where they're like, man, I don't feel like dealing with this anymore? Because this is about David, I told you last night that it was going to be a wild 72 hours. We're not 24 hours into that. I'm telling you guys, this is going to get a little nuttier in with what's in store and what's potentially to come here. And I just have to wonder, I don't think they're going to do it because of how much they've said in that 22-minute video podcast, or whatever you'd like to call it, last week. Yeah. I don't think Texas Tech is going to tap out. But at the same time, you just have to wonder here, does some kind of conscious, and I mean this in a nice way towards Brendan Sorsby, okay? Does he come out and say, man, this is too much? Like, this is, maybe I could declare for the NFL supplemental draft by the 22nd, which is next Monday. And by the way, that's not a given that the NFL will take him in the supplemental draft. That is a decision by the NFL. They do not have to have a supplemental draft. So, I also wonder too, and I'm sorry to go long-winded on here.
No, you're good.
Does Brendan Sorsby say, hey guys, I can't put y'all through this for 7 months. This is absolutely insane. And that's a legitimate question, I think.
No, and yeah, we were saying just as much earlier, like you almost wonder if there's like settlement negotiations of Brendan. We know you're not going to walk away for free, but how about we give you half of the money we guaranteed you or whatever, but you'd have to think there's at least some weighing of the options here. What do you think it says, Trey, that the Big 12 is so adamant about potentially hurting itself, knowing Texas Tech and how good of a team they are? Like, I just find that part fascinating where the schools are like, yeah, we know that you feel like you have leverage, and yeah, you are in a spot where you're being successful right now, but this is the line that we all agree we're not going to cross. Like, when everybody's doing things selfishly, suing to get their own way, this entire league's going, we don't care if this hurts us in the short term. This is for the long run, the greater good of college football. I just don't feel like we see that all that often en masse, the way you've seen people respond to this story.
I don't know if the Big 12 and its other members would be able to sleep at night. And I'm not saying they're on some crusade, okay? I don't want to make it out to be like that. But the Big 12 was getting walked on since that injunction was granted. They looked embarrassing. And let's all be honest. It's not, by the way, it's not their fault. This is a judge siding for Sorsby and against the NCAA. And you have to remember this too. A lot of folks inside the Big 12 did not think there was going to be an injunction granted. So, if folks think that the Big 12 is acting kind of on the fly here, it's because they're acting on the fly here. Like, they did not expect this part. I would say a majority of, in talking with folks. I think at the same time, if you are the Big 12 and you are other member institutions, I told you guys this last week, and I stand by this. We all know what the main topic of discussion regarding Big 12 conference is going to be for the next 7 months. It's not going to be about the CFP. It's not going to be about the congressional debate that's going on with markups scheduled this week in Washington, D.C. to that legislation, the Protect College Sports Act. It's not going to be opinion on 2014. It's going to be about Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech. Big 12 Media Days, 2 days in Frisco. It's going to be about Texas Tech and Brendan Sorsby. All Big 12 games this year that Texas Tech is involved in, I don't care if the other team is undefeated and Texas Tech is 6-1. It doesn't matter. The story is going to be about Brendan Sorsby. So you have to ask yourself, man, do we really want this as a conference? Like, do we want all this bad publicity every single weekend, no matter what or who Baylor is playing, or no matter who Houston or BYU or UCF or you name it, TCU is playing? The story is going to be about what's going on at Texas Tech. And it's not because, I want to make this clear too, it's not because Cody Campbell and some folks went out and spent a lot of money on a roster. Like, that's a small part. But we all know what the story is going to be, and it's going to be about Brendan Sorsby and the postgame and the press conferences and talking to his teammates. And, the SIDs, David, you know this, the SIDs can only do so much to keep a story from tracking up and picking up more legs. I think that's the spot we're in right now. And Big 12 members are like, nah, I don't feel like dealing with this for 7 months of the season.
So, Trey, there's been a lot of whatabouting, well, what about Cincinnati, or what about if this had happened elsewhere? And I've seen like the LSU example, and I do think there are times where LSU gets out of the white lines and people are like, those rascals, like that's LSU, they're just crazy. I do think there is an element to that. But as somebody who covers the SEC for many years, like let's switch out Texas Tech and LSU. How do you think the SEC would have handled this same situation?
I think personally, I think you would have seen, I don't care what school it is. So pick a school in the SEC. Okay. I think that LSU, let's use LSU because Cody Campbell brought up LSU. Okay. So we'll say LSU. Do I think in the current regime, LSU would have fought this? Potentially. Look at the governor situation. Look how Lane Kiffin ended up in Baton Rouge. If you already spent a good amount of money, that's the thing too, guys, that we can't forget in this situation. Brendan Sorsby's already received a nice chunk of money from Texas Tech. So you have to wonder, would a school be two things? Would they keep up the fight because of the money already spent and then not wanting to sue the quarterback to get the money back that you already spent on him for breaking the rules and not telling you? Or would you fight this thing knowing that you can say, hey, we're not involved in this. This is the player that's doing this. This is only, but we're only going to get involved, if they come after the school, which is, I guess, technically what you can say is happening right now, because the reason why Jeffrey Kessler put that statement out regarding Texas Tech is because essentially they have them on retainer. I mean, I say that in a non-legal way. Like, I don't know if they're paying him or not right now, but he already put out a statement on behalf of Texas Tech saying they'd be ready to sue. So what I'm getting at is that I think that there would be schools. I go all across the country. I'm in Big Ten country, ACC country, Pac-12 country, SEC country. And I think that there are a number of schools that would potentially stick with this. But I also think that we don't have the full story on Brendan Sorsby. Brendan Sorsby was asked by the NCAA. I got bored a little bit Friday night. I went back and looked through some affidavits and whatnot, just kind of clear my head a little bit, kind of dig in, see if I missed anything. And, one thing I came across that I already knew, but, Brendan Sorsby did not turn over records, bank records, digital records, text messages. They're only going off his word. So when he says he bet 90 grand in total, at least, on his wagering and his betting, that's his word. That's not the NCAA knowing that or the third-party sites knowing that. So my first thought was, I wonder how much the real total is, because it's not 90,000. They calculated that out. I think you saw, like in the affidavit, it also said something along the lines of, well, we don't think his betting at Indiana reached above $830 on Indiana football. It's like, interesting, that number right there. Because if you get above a certain number, you're out for the whole season, and there's percentages in there. So what I'm getting at is that there are things that we don't know about this. And I am fascinated to see what the Ohio Gaming Commission and the Indiana Gaming Commission have to say when their investigation is complete, because they told me investigations are ongoing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No question about it. This right now is about eligibility, if at all.
Correct.
In the end, this thing could become a hell of a lot deeper in the life of Brendan Sorsby.
If they wanted to. Yeah. If the states wanted to, guys, I mean, he's already admitted to, and I'm not piling on Brendan Sorsby here. I want to be clear about that. I understand what he's battling. I 100% get it and respect it. But at the same time, he's admitted to breaking about 4 laws in his affidavits, in his statements to the NCAA, which, by the way, were stipulated facts, meaning there was no argument. This is what he said. This is what he admitted to. You have to wonder when the states that the gambling took place in will step up and say, okay, Are we going to hit him with like a misdemeanor, underage gambling? What are we going to do here? Because he was also, I don't know the right term here for it, but I'll just say he was transferring money to friends so the friends can then place the bets for him. Well, that's got to be some kind of law. I mean, I don't know I'm not a legal expert. That's got to be a law that you can't do. So I'm just saying, like, I don't think we're done here from that side. I think with the eligibility case, which that's what it all really comes down to, is the eligibility side of it. I think if we're trying to figure out which court is going to grant which quicker, are we going to get something from the federal court that the Big 12 filed in that says, okay, Big 12, you can go do your thing. Like, you can punish, you can do whatever you want. You have the court's backing, blah, blah. Are you going to get something from the appeals court where they expedite this thing and they take a look at it and they're like, maybe we should overturn this? So I am truly, truly fascinated to see which court system moves faster here.
Well, Trey, enlightening and just interesting stuff to talk about as always. Always enjoy the conversation with you. And I don't want to like overplay this and hype it up, but basically if you're running out of popcorn, is your recommendation in regards to the story to go to the grocery store tonight and get some more? Like, is that what you're anticipating?
Yeah. If you're 30 minutes into the movie right now and you've already ate the whole bucket, go back and get yourself a refill. Because like, I'm just telling you, we're in the first act, boys.
Okay.
We're in the first act. Now this movie the projector could stop working right. in the next 3 or 4 days if Brendan Sorsby said, all right, guys, I'm good here. I'm going to move on, blah, blah. I don't see that happening. We'll see. I don't see the projector breaking.
Yeah, remember the old movies when the reel gets off and it just goes to like whatever. Yeah.
We'll refund your ticket. Sorry about the problem. Okay. All right. Well,
Trey,
refund your tickets.
Really have enjoyed the time. Appreciate you. And we'll get you again. So be ready and keep doing the great job you're doing and covering this story as well and deep as you can. Have a great night.
I appreciate it, David. Thank you all for having me.
Trey Wallace with us, Outkick and also Fox News. And always watched him a little bit, but then really in the last, 8 to 10 months, really has gotten involved with a lot of the stories in the middle of it, and appreciate his time whenever we get it.
I've seen Trey's tweets over the years, his various covers that he's done, and familiar a little bit with his work. But yeah, I think it was partially this story and just some of the other coverage he's done with the legal fronts where you reached out to him, and he's been great. I mean, he's been one of our better guests every time he's been on the show, and it's just so happened that it all lined up timing wise with just some fascinating stories like this very story right here that we're talking so much about. So yeah, great to have him on to talk a bit further about it. And you had to ask him the popcorn question at the end because clearly he's heard some things, and clearly there's a lot more legs to this story outside of just pulling the plug on the projector, which only really one person can do, and that's Brendan Sorsby. And I just don't know that you can't possibly know if you're not him or his inner circle of where his mind is at this point, outside of he's back with Texas Tech and he's working out and he's doing all that stuff and he's going to counseling or whatever else they've lined up for him. But yeah, I mean, he could pull the plug, turn the TV off in the middle of this thing and we all just move on. Or if he decides that like, no, it's the point of no return, well, Tech has shown they're going to have his back. So I was fascinated all last week by this story and the twists and turns. I'm just as fascinated this week. I know for some Tech fans in particular, it's probably going to already gotten real old or just want to pull your hair out depending on what your vantage point of it is. But yeah, it's not going anywhere. So look forward to just seeing what else continues to come out from either the Big 12, Texas Tech, Brendan Sorsby, or the NCAA. You wonder, and with all due respect to Brendan Sorsby and what he's trying to get through with whatever it is, the addiction, or do you sleep? If you've ever had something heavy on your mind, and I'm not just talking about like a death in the family or something like that, it get any worse than that, but you can be flat exhausted because of what you know that others know, but you don't know they know. That I hope that makes sense. Kind of, sort of, not really, but he also could have a futon filled with millions of dollars that he's sleeping on. Just no matter what happens, he's going to have money in the bank. Yeah, I think that part of it is really interesting, is kind of where's his head right now. But I'll just repeat what I said at the end of last week. That young man and his family have already, I'm assuming, done this. And I know Joey McGuire brought up a phone call that he got shortly after the decision was made from Brennan Sorsby's parents, but they better be kissing the ground they walk on in Lubbock, Texas, for the way Texas Tech has stuck his neck out there for them. I mean, the potential self-harm they've done to – I don't think the football program as a whole or the university is going to suffer. Like, they didn't suffer over the weekend in recruiting. I don't think they're going to suffer at all from this story. I don't think young people care about this at all. I think they see a program sticking up for their guys. But I hope the Sorsby family is very grateful.
No, they of course
they have to be, right? Like,
yeah,
they better be.
Joey mentioned that they got a call from the family, and listen, we don't know what the discussions are, but there's not, you would have to be just weird. They do. I don't think there's any doubt that they appreciate it, and he went around the Sorsby family.
And I think that's what helps you sleep at night if you're Texas Tech, to a certain degree. Is just that you're going above and beyond. But is it worth it in the end? That's a totally different conversation.
I know we are discussing Brendan Sorsby, and we will have other stories, but it is the week of the U.S. Open, and on occasion, when we do get away from what is college athletics or whatever, Craig does Off the Radar Tuesdays and Thursdays with a lot of other stories going on. But it is the week of the U.S. Open in golf at Shinnecock Hills. It is a beast. And Bob Herrig, longtime golf insider with a newsletter that we'll tell you about, he will join us next to discuss the tournament and more. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. I had a text. It was about midweek last week, and I just could not really ever get to it, even if it was like hitting yes, a Y, or no by just saying no. I need to get my car serviced. It's that time. Want to make sure I do it, about once or twice or so a year. Need it to look at maybe the condition of my front right tire. And Alan Samuels reached out to me and said, it's time for you to have a service appointment. And I will get that done this week. And also what will be great is not only will I know my car's good when it all is said and done, but I'll have a car that they will allow me to drive around that will maybe be a Jeep Wagoneer, Grand Cherokee, or a Ram truck, something like that, because they have phenomenal cars for me to test drive while they're fixing up mine. And right now, the 2026, the brand new Ram 1500 Lone Star. Save up to $11,000 off MSRP, and qualified buyers get 2.9% financing, APR financing for 72 months with approved credit. They are there to show you what you want. They are there to help you test drive what you need and help you along the way to getting that car, truck, or SUV. Ted Teague, General Manager and CEO, David Gray, Head of the Sales Department, and a great staff at Alan Samuels, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
We will get back to your comments from the chat room or also on Twitter on college football, Texas Tech, Brendan Sorsby, Big 12 and NCAA in just a little bit. But every time there's a major championship in golf, we discuss it. And this year, Shinnecock Hills this week in New York with the U.S. Open and Bob Herrig, who's a longtime and highly achieved golf writer who also has the Daily Drive and a newsletter that we'll get to. He wrote the book we featured a few weeks ago called Tiger vs. Jack. He joins us on 365 Sports. Bob, thank you very much. I can tell you're at the press tent, USGA in the background and all that. First of all, great that you're doing what you're doing now. Tell everybody real quickly about the newsletter, if you don't mind, then we'll get to the tournament.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me. I'm surprised you're able to get off that Texas Tech topic. That's a topic here even.
Yeah, no question.
But, yeah, it's amazing. But in any case, I'm writing I've joined up with these guys who started a Substack, which is a daily newsletter called The Daily Drive. 5 days a week, every day during the majors, sort of right up my alley. It's kind of what I've been doing for years, just writing golf, covering the news, reacting to the news, opining on what's going on in the game. And it's a nice outlet for me. And it comes to your email every day. You don't have to go search for it. It's just right there. You just have to subscribe. Pretty simple. It's on my Twitter feed at Bob Herrig. It's an easy link to find there. You can find the Daily Drive if you search for it, and it'll ask you to put your email in, and you'll start getting it every morning. So I appreciate the shout out. Thank you.
Is Shinnecock Hills one of the top 2 to 4 or top 5 hardest golf courses for a U.S. Open for any player? Brooks Koepka's won it. He's had the hand injury this weekend, but is it one of the most difficult challenges on courses that the USGA does like to dice up as hard?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go by the history, the winning score has pretty much been around par. I mean, Koepka won at even par in 2018, shooting 68 in the last round. They had a really kind of traumatic Saturday 8 years ago where they lost kind of control of the golf course and the score soared. I mean, Koepka shot 68, which is 2 under, to be able to shoot even par for the tournament. He was over par. Tommy Fleetwood shot 63 the last day, which shows you how much they softened up the course. Not that it's easy to shoot 63, but that wouldn't have been possible on Saturday when the low score, I don't know that anybody shot in the 60s on Saturday. But Tommy Fleetwood was 8 over through 54 holes and ended up finishing 1 over. So In 2004, Retief Goosen was 4 under. Phil Mickelson was 2 under, the only 2 players under par. That year, the final day, nobody broke par. In fact, there was only 11 scores of par or better on the weekend. So it's traditionally been tough. Corey Pavin, I believe, was 1 over when he won. Raymond Floyd was 1 under. So, yeah, it's just they don't really need to do that much to it to make it hard. If it's windy, it's very links-like. This is probably the closest course we have in the U.S. to what a true links is that you would find in the U.K. or Ireland. And there's a reason they want to come back here. It's got a historic aspect to it. It was the second place that ever hosted a U.S. Open. 1896, obviously the course was a lot different then, but it's still it's the same land, it's the same place, and they like coming back here, and they will in the future. It's not an anchor site, but it's one they plan to return to, fairly frequently.
I remember the Corey Pavin shot. Obviously, I love Raymond Floyd's toughness and grit. But the Mickelson, as the putt was still rolling, kicking it or hitting it back towards the hole, and of course, that's a whole nother topic with what he's going through or allegedly whatever. This is the people's champion, right? Because aren't there like 10,000 plus people who want to enter to get throughout the country, Bob, the ability to qualify to play in this tournament?
Yeah, there was. There was about 10,000 entries. You have to have a very low handicap to be able to do it. But you can try to go through local qualifying, which is 18 holes around the country. That narrows down to there were 13 final qualifiers, 10 of which were a week ago. Last Monday, there were 3 previous to that. One was in the UK, one was in Japan, one was in Dallas. Right after the PGA Championship, and then we had 10 last week, 1 in Canada and 9 in the U.S. And those 13 spots yielded around 62 players that are in the U.S. Open. Now there's been a few alternates added, so it's actually closer to 70, which means there is about 80 some exempt players. I think they prefer to be more 50-50, but still the number is about right. It's the one major where some pretty high-profile pros are not exempt. They had to go through qualifying. And there's been examples over the years of guys going through qualifying and winning. Lucas Glover was one. Michael Campbell was one at Pinehurst, 2005. He beat Tiger by 2 shots that year. He would have never even been in the tournament if there had not been a qualifier in the UK. That was the first year they did that. He lived near London. He decided, well, I'm going to go try it. He got in, and he wins the U.S. Open. So it is very democratic in that regard. They lean into that. They like that. We've got a lot of amateurs in the field. There's some club pros. Look, does that weaken the field? Yeah, sure. It's not as strong of a field as the PGA Championship or the Players Championship, but there's a charm to that aspect of it that I think is really cool.
There's always about, like, at the end of the second round, somebody that not many people know might lead it. I remember I was in Tyler. Andy Dillard, who played at Oklahoma State one year, had the lead, and he hadn't shown any reasons. He was talented, but had not shown any reasons. So we'll see some of that as well. So Scottie Scheffler's had a good year, but not a great year. Something seems to be off, but then again, we expect perfection from him. What is different, at least so far, for his year?
Yeah, I think he summed that up well. I mean, it's all relative, right? I think anybody else who has one win and the number of top 10s that he has in close calls would say it's a great year. But because it's Scottie Scheffler and he's won so much, he won 3 majors over the last 2 years. Won 2 majors last year. He won Olympic gold 2 years ago. So for him, it seems off. And I think the difference is a couple things. He's clearly not putting quite as well. That was always the weakness in his game. And 2 years ago, he went to a mallet putter, and he made it more of a strength. His iron play has always been a strength. and it's been a little off. I just don't think he's hitting it as close. He's missing a few more greens. And when you start missing greens, if you're not putting quite as well, you put pressure on that. And so it's resulted in a bit of a fall off. We saw it a couple weeks ago at the Memorial. You could visibly see the frustration from him. And, I would think this is a good venue for him. Ball strikers play well at a U.S. Open course, especially one like this. That's what he has been. It shouldn't be as much of a putting contest. Yes, the greens are tough, but really that's more about where you put the ball than it is the putting itself. I mean, if you're in the wrong spot, you can be the greatest putter ever, and you're going to see balls roll off greens, or you're going to see three putts. So it's more about where you put the ball, and that's been his strength. And so if he can regain that, then I would expect him to be up there. It's going to be interesting to see, because he's found himself behind a lot this year, and then you start pressing, and that's when the frustration shows.
This is the sixth time they'll host the Open. First year was 1896. Last time was 18 with Koepka winning. Bob, you are again entrenched into the golf game. I saw a picture of you out on the fairway one time with Tiger, among others. What's that like to be able to, and those players trust you to also allow you to kind of pick their brain a little bit during a practice round, obviously?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a nice way to be able to get a little time with these guys when you're not taking time from them otherwise. Especially with Tiger, that was always the case, because Tiger wasn't going to linger much after the round to talk to us. But during a pro-am or a practice round, when you're waiting and he knows you and he's seen you around, or I could say that about a lot of guys. There's guys that don't mind that. As long as you're not infringing upon them getting their work done, it's maybe a good time to ask a couple questions, get a few things out of the way, or maybe just a little banter, just small talk. How are things going? You learn some stuff too. You see how they interact with their caddy up close. You see how they practice. You see what they're working on. And when they let you in like that, that's nice. That's very helpful.
Bob Herrig with us again, a golf insider on 365 Sports. This is a course where they removed a bunch of trees. They widened. That surprised me. They widened the fairways, because normally in the U.S. Open they don't do that. And then the rough, of course, is a stick up to your calf. But it still looks like this is going to be a beast. As you mentioned, the wind looks like it's been blowing all day today.
Yeah, if they get this kind of wind during the tournament, it'll be really interesting. It was pretty breezy out there today. And the fairways are a bit wider, so they've given you a little leeway off the tee. But if you miss, you're in trouble. The rough does not look easy, and we're talking right up against the fairway. So you got a little bit more room, but if you miss, good luck. And that's when the trouble begins. And even from the fairway, though, you're still firing at these firm greens that have these small landing areas to get the ball close. You got to be exact. So I don't know. There's some moisture in the air. It's a bit humid. That usually means that things are a bit softer. It's maybe not quite as firm right now as they would like, or that it will be. There's a little bit of rain in the forecast. Anything that softens it takes a little bit of the fire out, and then you've got a chance for some scoring. Doesn't mean there'll be a lot of great scores, but usually there's a couple. So that's, I think, what we're sort of not sure of how this is going to go. Will there be some good rounds, or is it going to be firm and fast and really difficult the whole way?
Last thing, if you don't mind, and we could go into Mickelson or whatever, but I want to ask you, because it's such a great story about Bud Cauley, who had that terrible car wreck, almost Ben Hogan-like. I mean, I'm not quite, and then he wins this weekend and grinds through yesterday's final round and overtakes a lot of people. He was up near the top most of the time. What a story, Bob, entering a major championship with what he's been through and what he's accomplished.
Yeah, and he basically needed that win to get in here.
Yeah.
He was not in the top 60 in the world. That victory pushed him into the top 60, which was one of the last qualifying criteria for entry. So he had a lot going on. Obviously, you want to win. There's pressure coming with winning. He had not won on the PGA Tour. That car accident was back in 2018, and he was banged up pretty good. Somebody died in that crash. It was at the Memorial. He was playing that week, and he went long periods without playing golf. And he tried to come back, and then it was too soon. Then he did get back, and now he is back. He's been knocking on the door a few times, but he had a lot of pressure. You want to get that win. That means a lot. And also it meant getting in here. If he didn't win, he's not in here. So good for him. I think he's kind of playing with house money this week. And sometimes that works out well for a guy.
Bob, thank you. Golf Writer, Insider, Newsletter, The Daily Drive, Substack, and more. The book, Tiger vs. Jack, which is out. Thank you for your time, and have a great week in New York.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for having me.
Bob Herrig with us on the U.S. Open this week. Last year, it was J.J. Spaun with that bomb long putt. You can turn down the audio.
That didn't bother you too much.
Yeah. J.J. Spaun with a long bomb for the putt that sealed him winning the U.S. Open. And, of course, Shinnecock Hills is a mother, of a course to try to also tame if you can. All right, now, Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech, Big 12, and NCAA. In the chat room, and I'll tag my name or tag 365 Sports or tag Craig, and we'll see it. About this story, where are you? A lot of times we're doing the segment, we have guests, whatever. We have our opinions, but where are you on this? For example, Alex Armstead, in my opinion, I think people are making too much of a deal out of this Brendan Sorsby gambling situation. Craig?
That's certainly an opinion you're entitled to. I think you're not alone in sharing that sentiment, and there's some that feel like it's just kind of theatrics or just jealousy, or I've seen all sorts of different ways that people have rationalized this story and the reaction to it from pillar to post. A lot of people, though, have an opinion. That's what we can all settle on, is that whether you agree with certain opinions or not, is everybody seems to have one on this story, and that's part of what makes it fascinating. But yeah, I don't know that I don't agree that it's just not a big deal at all and everybody needs to get over it, which I think is kind of what they're alluding to here, is not, or at least it's not a big enough deal to keep talking about all these days later. I think what you're seeing now is it's not even so much about the decision, it's the response to it. Like what's being talked about now isn't this same judge and the decision that he made, it's the fallout from that, and now everybody's reacting. And I think one thing that Trey pointed out earlier when he was joining us is that, and we said this multiple times last week, I don't think Texas Tech ever thought they were going to be in a position where they were going to have to defend that decision. I thought that they were going to get the clean break and felt like this judge would say what he said, and then Brendan Sorsby would say, all right, well, off to the supplemental draft. I'm going to go see if I can get into that thing here in the next couple of weeks. And Tech, I appreciate you having my back, but the judge said what he said, so that's all there is to it. And I think Tech was like, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, so we'll just be – we'll be ready to pivot to Will Hammond, get our other guys ready, and be done with it. I think the Big 12 thought, well, clearly this judge isn't going to make some insane decision. I mean, there's always a chance, but not over gambling. That's the golden line that you don't cross. And so they didn't probably think they would have to get their lawyers all rounded up from their various institutions, and didn't ever anticipate they'd be having to argue with Ken Paxton or dealing with threats of or preemptive threats of what a punishment would look like. And so they're scrambling, Tech's scrambling. I think Sorsby scrambling, because I don't think that he anticipated that he would probably win this case. And then if you didn't really think that far down the line, you weren't anticipating what that backlash would be like. So I can only imagine what it's like on his end, as insulated as he may be, still to just look at your phone and understand that there's thousands of people that are like cursing you or just against you or whatever. So, I mean, I understand the sentiment of maybe you feel like there's fans in this conference or that conference that are going a bit overboard. I think there's probably been some opinions where that's justified, but I think in general, the story is just super fascinating, and nobody really involved thought we'd get to this point. And so it's just led to this this mixed mash of just like, how do you react to this? And then how do you react to what they react to? And it's just, it's fascinating in that way.
Yeah, no, it is. It is blown up a lot more than I ever thought. But, and I even brought this up with a comment in the chat room, is how much of this, and we do the show, we're here because we love college football, athletics, sports, etc. We do this show. We try to bring all the various angles. But how much of it being blown up is also because so much now is on social media?
Oh, no. I mean, well, that's the gift and the curse, right? Is when you didn't have, I mean, could you imagine Twitter, like, and this is just something randomly that popped in my mind of like a major sporting event, but like the OJ Broncos.
No.
Can you imagine what
Yeah,
Twitter would have been like for that?
God. I remember
Like,
I was live on the air at the Sportster hosting a show when that was going on. That was nuts.
Right.
And there was no social media. You're right.
And then there's so many other examples. That's just a random one of like, I was thinking of like, what was a really polarizing sports adjacent moment that had live streaming and live reactions been around. That might have been the grandest of them all. But there's tons of others. And yeah, social media is certainly playing a huge role here because everybody's opinion can be heard. In a different era, we don't know what Cliff and Leveland is thinking about this. In another world, we don't know what Jerry in Tuscaloosa is thinking about this. But guess what? Their tweet comes across my timeline via algorithm the same way that Dan Wetzel's does or Ross Dellinger's does. So everybody's got a voice. It's the crazy public town hall that's got its issues, but it is beautiful in that everybody's got a voice. You just got to double check to see if it's a real voice or not half the time nowadays. But nevertheless, like it's interesting to see all the opinions, and that's certainly added a ton to it because normally we would just go home and we'd see SportsCenter covering it, and maybe a website or two would have a conversation or an article about it, like a Dan Wetzel column or something. But I think you just still kind of go about your life. Whereas now with social media, you get the constant updates, the constant text, and it just feels like there's never this story is not leaking any fuel whatsoever. It's only gaining momentum as the days go by, oddly enough. And so, yeah, I just think everybody's fascinated, but social media has certainly played a huge role in not just this, but everything being magnified times 10, no matter a trade in the NBA or a championship celebration, but certainly something that courts controversy and is something that not only courts controversy, but is also where you have one side that seemingly doesn't have a lot of allies and the whole world that you're a part of is lined up against you to some degree, the way this sort of feels. It makes it even that much larger because now Ohio State fan and Alabama fan and Texas fan, they're all like ganging up and getting involved, you know?
Yeah, they already were on the radar because of like disrupting.
Right. Yeah.
But I wonder if this would have been, what if this would have been Minnesota?
If it was Minnesota, then I think it's still a big deal because what I was going to eventually circle back around to the person's original question was, I just think that we stumbled upon not only a very lightning rod story, but I think it's the one thing that you still thought they could control.
Yeah.
Like eligibility out the window, NIL out the window, coaching movement never has happened. This, that, the other, realignment, TV networks are in charge. Everything that's changed or can be changed or whatever, like you're not surprised at this point. This was the one thing that like even Texas Tech, had you polled them, and you know what their answer would be if Brennan Sorsby had transferred to West Virginia.
Sure. Of course we do.
The only school that would stand up for his behavior was the one that he went to. And I don't think that changes no matter what example. If he went to Tennessee, and that's why I asked Trey earlier about the LSU example that everybody's bringing up. And I've talked about a little bit. I just think you fell upon the one area where everybody actually agrees. And then when you spit in the face of what everybody thought was this most logical of conclusions, and in the process took the one thing that we still could kind of believe was going to stand the test of time, that no matter what, no matter whatever changes around this, you still cannot bet on your team. You can't do. And then that was suddenly gone. I think everybody's just like, well, if that doesn't even get upheld, then then what is there? Like, and I think that's also what's interesting is like this whole conversation about the death of college football, or just the evolution, I think is a better term for it, the evolution of college football. I think this was just a complete wild card that nobody anticipated being a part of the equation. So I think, yeah, there's elements of Texas Tech envy. There's elements of not liking Tech Disruptor. There's elements of not feeling that this, that, or the other is worth the effort. But I think at the end, it's just all college football fans going, all right, that's like, this is enough. Like, we cannot continue this way. And we all agree on that. That's why I think this story is really taken on even more of a life than it already would have.
From a firefighter. I think the judge's decision is deplorable, but I don't understand the hatred towards Tech over it. The internet has acted like McGuire was the NCAA attorney and Cody Campbell was the judge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't see anything other than a couple of guys who are defending their investments. And I think more so in the case of Joey McGuire, like his player. And I think Joey McGuire, regardless of the circumstances, is always going to have his players back, no matter what. And even if they were to do something egregious, like, you're still going to be there in support the way that you would be without like supporting whatever their action was, right? But you would still be there as part of their support system. I think that's kind of just the person and the coach that Joey McGuire is. He's going to have his players' backs for better or for worse. And I think that's caught him up in a situation now where you don't want him to have his players back. You want him to have college football's back. So I think he's in a really tough position because he can't turn around and be a part of booting Brendan Sorsby and then go into the living room and say, like, well, we're going to have your sons back no matter what. Like, there's also that element to this. The Cody Campbell piece is a bit different. I think he is a big part of Texas Tech's reaction. I think he may be the one calling the shots in so many ways. And obviously his influence is immense. And I don't think anybody who's been paying attention believes that anything other than Cody Campbell's influence probably had Ken Paxton jumping out the way that he did when he did. Same thing with Jeffrey Kessler. So if I'm a Tech fan, I'm side-eyeing Cody Campbell a little bit. I appreciate everything that he's done and will continue to do. I think he wants what's best for Texas Tech, but I think like this is just a battle that wasn't worth fighting potentially in the long run. But I think he's also a billionaire who probably doesn't get told he's wrong a whole lot. And even if he does, he probably just dismisses it or whatever and moves on. And so I think they're in a spot where they're kind of at the mercy of this billionaire donor that's kind of calling the shots. That's kind of what it feels like to me. And there's nobody to tell him, no, stop this. And he's so far down the road at this point that his ego is not going to allow him to turn around and be like, you know what, rest of college football world, I was wrong. You were right. Let me get back to saving college sports. We're going to boot Brendan Sorsby off. No, at this point, he's doubled and tripled down. He's thrown LSU into the mix. He said, well, what about so-and-so? And so,
and in the middle of all that was this damn thing about playing Texas or vice versa.
Well, yeah, fresh
in
on
the
the heels.
non-conference game because of what Sark had mentioned. And then, of course, Tech responded.
Think about the month of June so far. You have that whole dust up that then leads into Texas beating you in softball, mind you. There was also that directly afterwards.
After that, yeah.
Like days later after that brouhaha with Steve Sarkisian's comments and the scheduling back and forth. And then you go and you lose the softball title to Texas. And then it turns like basically right into this story as well. So it's been a doozy of like a 3 weeks or a month for Texas Tech supporters. And hey, they got a big commit this weekend. I mean, I don't think the investments or anything are going anywhere. I don't think the program's going anywhere, but I do think that they might have miscalculated because somebody at the head of the spear decided like this is what we're going to do and nobody's there to stop him. And I don't want to say that nobody else has any blame in that, or not even blame, but that nobody else is calling shots. But I do think there's a lot of people that are sort of the belief now that Cody Campbell's running this thing and they're not going to back down. And that's what you see this all turning into in a lot of ways. Whereas maybe if somebody else had to say last week, they would have said, you know what, like, yeah, this juice isn't worth the squeeze. Maybe not.
From General Ursus, Tennessee fan. I don't think it's necessarily hate for Tech, but regardless who the school is, the fact that they are entertaining the thought of playing a known gambler is disgusting and troublesome for college sports.
Yeah, and yeah, and I think that helps also partially answer the other question. Where I agree. I don't think that there's the Tech is like without any fingerprints on this thing, because they sent out the 22-minute video with their president and their athletic director and their head football coach and their support system guy and all of that jazz. So yeah, they've also gone on the record in many ways, not just Cody Campbell, and said what they've said. So yeah, I think that they're rightfully.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that they're rightfully a little bit in the crosshairs of some people, but I think when you kind of step away, that they are just supporting their guy. That's what they say that they do. And you just look at it from that point of view. Yeah, Tech is harmless in this, but have they gone to the extreme lengths that they might have otherwise not gone to if this was just a math student? Yes, they've also done that. So yeah, I mean, it's a complicated story. And I definitely think that Tech's probably getting a little bit too much heat in circumstances, but they're not circumstances, but they're also not completely innocent in this entire thing either.
One more note, and one said that the judge should take a lie detector test. I think that might have been Paxton.
That's the part we got to know what this judge thought.
I don't know. I don't know. Does he have to talk? Will he write something? No. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to.
What about before we get into the games and everything, like the part about the Big 12, what they've said about possibilities? Did you have anything on that as far as the punishments would
let me
go?
I think that, Rez, you probably don't have that like right in front of you. But so I can't remember last week about what, in fact, when it was brought up that the conference could do something, we know and we mentioned multiple times they can consider reprimand. They can consider taking some revenue. They've done that in the past. Let me get you to what is the checklist of what actually the conference can do if, in fact, they end up making the decision. Here it is. If a supermajority of disinterested directors determines that any of the grounds exist to sanction a member, bylaws 3.6 empower the supermajority in its sole discretion to determine whether any sanctions are appropriate, the type, the extent, and condition to any sanctions imposed, and impose such as sanctions in a member depending in each case on factors that a supermajority of disinterested directors deems to be relevant, including but not limited to the severity of the harm to the conference taken as a whole, resulting from the. This is a bunch of just.
Yeah, you're speaking legalese.
The bottom line is it can be imposed. Here's the list. Shit, I wish I'd have gone straight to this. Prohibitions on appearances in postseason events or television events, such as conference championship, and restrictions on revenue distributions.
Yeah, so I wish I would have asked you that during a commercial break so you could have just highlighted the line at the very end.
I got to it.
That was vague and general. I thought it was something a bit more specific.
Yeah, it's like when I was reading that myself, I was like, they're turning. I
mean,
like
what
that.
if? Yeah, no, I clicked off of YouTube when you started getting to like the second sentence there, but no, I think a few people stayed up with us.
We
there.
gained viewers.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, would they go so far as to not allow them to play for a conference title? I mean, I feel like we've really had to have dialed this thing up to a really severe degree to go that far.
Man, they're pissed.
I mean, a
lot of people in the this isn't like this is that because of a scandal. There are people angry at this, and if it would have been Arizona or maybe Baylor, or would they have gotten this hot and bothered by it? I would think. But if it was Baylor, my God, I don't even want to go there. We've seen them under the fire.
Granted, this is like several thousand levels below when everybody was mad at Baylor. This is nothing compared to that. I'd much rather deal with this situation. It's just happening now. But yeah, I think we've seen before how people will kind of react to that. I do think Tech has a little extra spice on this as far as some of the reaction from certain areas of the country in particular because of the disruptor status. I don't think, though, that's why everybody's going all in on them. I don't think that they're deserving of all of the mud being slung their way. But I do think that they aren't completely without some blame because of the 22-minute video and because of the doubling and the tripling down, because of threatening to get legal people involved, having the attorney general go on the offense and threaten the Big 12 and saying he can take as much as $200 million in damages from you, and having Jeffrey Kessler, who just won the Sorsby injunction, having him on speed dial, basically probably hadn't even left Lubbock yet, and he's already following up with Abbott or not Abbott, but he's following the Paxton quotes, and he's got quotes of his own. So in that way, that's maybe Cody Campbell's guidance there, and that's where you don't place blame on Joey McGuire or Skuvanek or whoever, because Kirby Hocutt, maybe they're not calling those shots at this point. That's what we don't know. Maybe that'll be in that book someday that comes out about this situation, depending on where it goes. But it's just such a multi-layered story, and now there's potential further lawsuits. There's what the Big 12 can do. There's what Tech would react to in terms of the Big 12, because we know they're armed with lawyers already. There's like, and who is Tech? But the team that in the last week has made it very clear multiple times, I think intentionally, we haven't played him yet. He hasn't played it down for us yet. He has not played a single game at Texas Tech. And I don't think that that's just coincidental that they're saying that and making sure that they say that multiple times. So there's a lot of different ways. This is an unpredictable roller coaster we're on right now. And I think that's just why everybody's fascinated, because the root of it is the one thing that seemed to still make sense in college football. And now that doesn't even make sense. And it opened a bigger can of worms than anybody could have ever imagined.
All right. There's a few other notes. Texas did win final 14-2. They crushed Alabama. Alabama was outscored 23-2, losses to Oklahoma and Texas at the College Baseball World Series. So tonight, Georgia and Oklahoma, both teams are 1-0. Here are Super Chat from today's show. And then we got a couple other notes on some pretty unique type of stories over the weekend in sports. When you're in a hole, quit effing digging, from Kim 49. It's like quicksand. The more and more you paddle, the more and more you try to get out, the worse and deeper you go. And then next thing you know, you are covered in dirt.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of what's added fuel to the fire, right? It was Paxton getting involved. It was Jeffrey Kessler getting involved. It was Tech going on the offensive. That's what I kept saying on, I think it was Friday's show. I was just like, wow, I'm surprised by how aggressive Tech is being in their response to this. Like, it's one thing to have your guys back. It's another thing to be like, we're going to attack you before you can attack us. I just didn't think that was the best idea. And we'll see how it plays out ultimately in their favor or not. But I thought that was a miscalculation that only served to add even further gasoline to, again, there's been a lot of ways there's been more fuel poured on this thing. And I definitely think that Tech, instead of just getting comfortable in the hole, Kim, and just kind of letting Sorsby take most of the heat and a little peripheral heat here and there, they decided, screw the shovels. We're going to grab our machine guns and start shooting, and then hope that everybody else backs off, and everybody else is like, bull S, like, we're going to go grab our, and we're like, this thing's just getting started. So yeah, I think that they created more of a messier situation for themselves and should have just sat in that original hole, to Kim's point. And instead, they decided to grab even bigger and better shovels as well. So thank you, Kim, as always.
All right. So there were a lot of unique stories from over the weekend at, in fact, the White House, UFC 250. Just one image from that event. And there were some fights that, Craig, you would know more about them than me. This was a shot of the fighter pilots and jets flying over the White House and over the ring and over what was, I don't know if it was 50, 60, 80,000 people, and what was constructed seemed to be a pretty nice patriotic night and some pretty good fights. And I don't know, but that's a pretty damn cool picture right there with those jet fighters.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looks like AI.
And it wasn't,
convinced people that it was. But yeah, that's a cool looking shot. I mean, it's been a very polarizing event. I'm not going to get political in any way about this. I think ultimately it was highly successful, and people who were taking it with an open mind and for what it was as far as just a sports event. I think that you walked away satisfied. If you were a little bit more feeling the political tug of war in regards to this event and either agreeing or disagreeing with it being held or wherever you fall on that. Like, you're going to have that opinion regardless of how last night went. But just in general, it seems like it was a massive success. I don't know. I definitely don't think there was like 80,000 people. Like, there's not enough room for, I think there, though, was a lot of people on one of the park areas, like lawn areas, that were watching this.
Or what's the memorials that had people around the various areas that were set up. But the number of people, it was loud, it was exciting, and it seemed like it was very well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and expensive by Dana White's own admission. He can't do that again. He can't afford it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to ever see it again, because Dana White did say afterwards that he's had to spend so much more money than he typically would for an event. I think like $60 million when you take into account all the extra security and just the unique setup and everything that comes with that. So yeah, I think that was a one-off, although I'm sure he could be convinced otherwise. And we'll see where that goes ultimately. But congrats to Justin Gaethje, the big win, the big title win last night over Ilya Topuria in the main event. Hell of a scrap. He put a beating on Topuria, and you always hate when there's stoppages and things like that. That's part of UFC is not nearly the level of boxing, but there's sometimes you wish it could just be a clean knockout and then or a clean tap, and there's no, well, what about? But I mean, I think it was pretty clear that Justin Gaethje beat up Ilya Topuria and was deserving of that belt. And so, yeah, the new lightweight champion, congrats to him. And also to be able to headline a card like that, I'm sure that's an incredible memory. And it worked out to where like the top two fights were, I think, 3/4 were not even American fighters, but Gaethje was. So you end the night with the American winning the belt, this huge accomplishment in his career, almost like you drew it up that way. But yeah, just kind of a poetic ending, and what seems to be a pretty successful event overall for all of the talk about it.
Pereira got beat, is that right?
Yeah, Alex Pereira got beat up real good. Yeah.
And it's, how do you say the name? Gagne? Gain?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
That's why I asked.
Cyril, I'm trying to think, though. Now if you would have said that, I probably would have just said it, and now I'm doubting. I think it's Gain, but I'm not sure.
He has now fought Ngannou, Jones, Aspinall, and now also Pereira. He's fought some dudes in his career.
He's
14-2.
He's a tough guy and a good fighter. And now you've got me double doubting what his name is pronounced like. But regardless of that was a whooping he put on. Really good win for him. I'm not as plugged into UFC as I once was. I mean, I'm still familiar with a lot of the fighters, but I don't watch it nearly as much as I used to, even a few years ago. But that was a good event for the UFC fans out there. I think they thoroughly enjoyed it.
One Sport Mark said, I believe it's pronounced Gain, like the detergent.
Okay, right. That's one of those where, like I said, if you had not said that, I would be like, Cyril Gain or whatever, and then you go, is it pronounced? And I'm like, is it pronounced?
Yeah.
No, but thank you.
All right, now the World Cup. Earlier today, Cape Verde and Spain had a 0-0 tie or a draw. Spain was a huge favorite in this. There was somebody that bet $1 million on Spain to win, and had they won, they would have won like $1.4 million. There was also somebody that put $427,000 on Cape Verde to win and won $4.7 million with the bet, and they do win. As they end up, Spain and Cape Verde tie, draw, but they do get it because of the bet to not lose, basically. That's crazy. Now, here was a note, AT&T Stadium.
Well, that was a really big deal for Cabo Verde. It's also known as Cape Verde, but I think it's officially Cabo Verde regardless. That was a really huge deal for that country to get a draw with the Spaniards. Obviously, Spain, a very proud country, historically one of the greats in soccer. That was a big deal earlier today. And you could tell, you felt like I don't know, the Cabo Verdeans, but whatever their word is properly, it looked like they won 5-0 the way they were celebrating. And it looked like Spain lost 5-0 the way that they were reacting to it. So yeah, that was a big deal for them to get that draw. And man, like one of the coolest things of you had the UFC event last night. For those that didn't get lost in the politics, it was just like this big extravaganza thing. But on the heels of also several days now where we've seen the World Cup and all this stuff on social media, like one of my, like it's just been kind of cool these last few days to see all of these people talking about the country, and particularly Freddie, the German.
We spotlighted him on Friday.
But now he's got like 20 copycats because now everybody's realized how much people love his content. So there's like, here's this other soccer fan from Japan that's here, and they're on Instagram. But like to see the documentation of all these people coming over and the fun they're having and the things they're discovering. And it was like, was the Japanese tourists down in Houston, they saw the cops on horseback, and they have a deep love for like Western culture in Japan that goes back like decades, and like a love of cowboys. And like to see like a kid in a candy store seeing a cop up on a horse, and just like, I see it and I don't think twice about it. This Japanese tourist sees it and he thinks it's like the coolest thing he's ever seen. It's been really fun to see a lot of those types of moments throughout the good part of social media. We wouldn't see any of that otherwise.
Here's one. The Japanese soccer fans that were at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, after the game, they bring their own trash bags to an event. And Jameis Winston, who I think is just really cool too. A lady was asked about, why do you do this? And it's our culture, but it's also a sign of respect toward the country and stadium that welcomes us, and toward our players. For us, it's an honor to be received here. We couldn't leave everything in the mess. They did their locker room that way. I've seen that before. I lived in Japan for 4 years, and it can be pristine when it comes to how they keep up with keeping things clean.
Yeah, I feel like that's like kind of a rehash from what we saw, the same thing from the Olympics. I mean, that's just what the Japanese do culturally. So yeah, we saw the same types of clips. I think that one's more unique because Jameis is also taking part, and he's like just a humorous guy. And so yeah, what an unexpected clip that was, to see Jameis and this random contingent of Japanese World Cup fans just cleaning the stands. But yeah, that's what they do, and it's awesome. That's awesome they do that. I'm sure they would lose their minds when they see the way that people don't even put up their grocery carts here in America, or do any other number of things. Like
I saw that this weekend.
They would lose their mind. But yeah, there's been just so much cool stuff, like just the people seeing America for the first time and either debunking the stereotypes they had, or just the change of opinion they've had, or the things they think are absolutely insane that we do compared to where they are. It's been really cool to see all of that, and kind of just the events themselves. There's such cool pageantry with the World Cup, and the fandom that it brings, and the passion and spirit that it brings. It's only every 4 years, but every time it rolls around, I'm always appreciative of getting a little taste of it. It's just very cool.
I don't know if you saw the goal that Japan scored, like with hardly any time left. It was a header that then hit the top of the head of a Japanese teammate, and then bounced in, went in the goal. Here is a picture of downtown in Shibuya Crossing in Tokyo, fans wanting to celebrate. They run into the traffic, or the intersection, not traffic, into the intersection when the light turned red. And do you have that, Rez? Do we have that as far as the video? All these fans, watch them rush to center. Okay, here's the goal. And watch this, what they do. Everybody starts running. Oh my God, what are they going to be? Okay. They go out, they start celebrating. The traffic lights, everything is not breaking the traffic rules. But as soon as the light turned red, watch what happens. This is like 30 or 40 seconds. They might show an overview of this. Everyone's having fun. Nothing's burning. And then here it is. Here's the picture of running out into the traffic at the intersection. And then watch what they do. It's like fire ants on a dead cricket or something like that. And then the light turns red. That's not a lot of people, but it's a nice little chunk of people. The light turns red, and watch how they disperse very quickly. And I'll let that run its course. Having fun. And that's just another part of the World Cup and the tradition, the culture.
Long red light we're on, apparently.
40 seconds worth.
Yeah.
That's like the one on College and Lakeshore. Here we go. Here comes the red light, and they go, oh, God, we got to get ourselves out of the intersection.
You see that, Knicks fans?
Oh.
That's how you do it. That's how you get out there and celebrate, and then you get out of everybody else's way. But, a lot of celebrations going on. That's cool. Yeah, they're very respectful people. A lot of different countries, I think, making some cool content, just having some cool moments over the last few days, and still got a hell of a long way to go. I mean, we're just getting started with the World Cup over the course of the next
it's not
few
even a week full into it. Okay, last thing. The Savannah Bananas, the baseball team that entertains, they've been to Kyle Field. They've been to every major large stadium you could imagine. They were at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the great Tom Osborne was there wearing their jersey. They had 80,000 plus who showed up. They packed the stadium. That's not a surprise. They do that in Lincoln.
Well, they do that for Banana Ball too.
Yeah, they do. It's
I'm not
unbelievable.
a consumer, but I also don't have like kids, and I think that's a big part of their target audience is families and just people wanting a fun night out at the ballpark with some hijinks and everything else. I mean, it's the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, but like times 1,000. I think the person, I forget his name, that created Banana Ball, I read about kind of the journey of it all, and just what an incredible story, and incredible what it's turned into. And yeah, they're selling out college football stadiums left and right. Kyle Field, Lincoln Memorial. I was going to say too, World Cup, there's some like obvious parallels you can draw with college football and fandoms and just kind of the sports themselves and everything. And I think it's been cool to see, like, even the German Freddie, who we're talking about on this show, like when he visited Auburn the other day and saw the stadium, or I think he got a tour of a little bit of LSU's facilities actually over the weekend. And it's been cool to see some of the college football infiltration into some of these World Cup tales, as well as people see some of these places, and just, it's really, really good sports weekend, like a really good sports weekend, from the NBA to the NHL, championships being decided, UFC at the White House for the fight fans, College World Series, regular Major League Baseball, World Cup. I mean, yeah, what a hell of a couple of days this weekend was, and we still got way more of College World Series, we got a bit left, and we got a lot more of the World Cup left.
You got all the way into the weekend with the College World Series.
But cool stuff there. And Banana Ball's it's an incredible success story. It really is.
We'll get into the Knicks and NBA championship with you tomorrow with Off the Radar. Okay. We'll get into that.
Tom was looking a little older there, but I'm glad he's still upright and doing his thing. He's obviously an old guy at this point, but he good to see him out and about and waving to the folks and kissing babies, shaking hands. He's an absolute legend.
I have a voicemail from him that's still in my phone. They're just returning a call that I sent to him for an interview. Love the guy. All right. We are now set, and we appreciate your time today, as we do every single day. It is time for Andrew Valade and all of what he does, and it's kicked off by Rez, the Michelangelo of producing, with the wheel.
You got to cut down on that introduction. It's a little bit
it's a little lengthy. God, there's a lot of topics again. Have you ever... Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, so for those not familiar, it's kind of how we wind down the shows here at around 5:30 Central, is get into some polls and things to close out. So this is the descent of the show. Have you ever been on a double-decker plane? Also, what's the smallest plane you've been on? I've been on a regular, like, small plane-wise, like little mud skipper, Southwest American airline type of flight when you're going somewhere that's like less than an hour. So I think I took like a Tyler to Dallas, like just a little small tiny plane with, I don't know how many, like 20 people or something in it, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
it's with they call it a little puddle jumper. But
puddle jumper, I think, is the term I was looking for. That's the smallest I've been on, so nothing crazy. And then I have not been on a double decker plane ever.
I don't think I've been on one of those jumbo jets. I know on the flight to Japan, that was a big jet, but that was so long ago, I don't remember. I don't think it was a double decker, if they even had them back then. I have been on a Piper Cub with the owner of a radio station. We flew down to Houston to meet with an advertising agency, me and him, Paul, and that's it. And it was it was pretty darn cool. It was like being a glider, but it was pretty cool to make that short trip from Tyler down to Houston and then on the way back. All right, so let's get to today's quizzes. There are 2. And June 15, 2004, which iconic NBA underdog completely dismantled the star-studded Lakers 4-1 to win the championship?
Well, it's not the Spurs. It's not the Spurs because they are in the Western Conference, so it couldn't have been them. But that time period, that would have been the
Pistons?
Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I think that's the Pistons, and that might have been with Wallace.
Yeah, it was all those
Hamilton
guys.
and all them. All right, let's look.
Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, absolutely.
2004 Pistons led by the iconic going to work starting 5 of Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, and Big Ben Wallace shut down a Lakers squad featuring Kobe, Shaq, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton. In Game 5 on this day, Detroit beat LA 187 at the Palace of Auburn Hills, holding the Lakers under 90 points for the 4th time in the series and ending the Shaq-Kobe era. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have thought about it being the end of the Shaq-Kobe era. I now, though, remember celebrating the end of the Shaq-Kobe era because it felt like it was never going to end. But yeah, the 04 Pistons. There you go.
Chauncey Billups. He was a clutch player. I'm telling you, and we'll get to Jalen Brunson tomorrow because he reminds me a lot of what Billups did for that Detroit team. All right, quiz number 2. The Knicks are the 2026 NBA champions. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges made history as the first trio to win a title together in both the NBA and in college basketball. This has to be Villanova.
Well, yeah, it's not. And which college basketball team? Well, the college basketball team is, Villanova. Very clearly Villanova.
Yeah, Villanova is the answer. And Josh Hart, Bridges, Brunson achieved sports immortality by, I read those completely backwards.
Why, though?
Just because.
I just read it.
Under Mike Brown, the head coach of the Nova Knicks became the first trio in basketball history to win both the NCAA title together at Villanova in 16 and a Larry O'Brien trophy in the pros. They capped their legendary run by overcoming insane double-digit deficits. Every finals win to end. But I heard this on the radio this morning, a 53-year drought since 1973, and damn sure was 53 years.
Yeah, I've seen them play for titles like against the Spurs back, 20 years ago now at this point. But, wouldn't have thought it was 53 years if I didn't know any better. I would have assumed that some point in the last 50 years they had won a championship, but no. So, yeah, they definitely earned that one. The number of double-digit deficits they overcame, just the whole story of this Knicks team is going to be told for a really long time. And it was a really big deal for that city, for that franchise to get the first one in over 50 years. They deserved it, man. That was a really great team, and Jalen Brunson's an easy guy to root for. There's various others on that team that are easy to root for, but a very cool side story to that is the Villanova contingent and how successful they've all been together and how they've been able to transition from college to the NBA. And the Knicks are not the first team that's put like former college teammates together and said like, here, go be successful. But this worked really, really well. It could maybe continue to work more and more in the future. We'll see. But right now I know they're enjoying this one. And yeah, just very cool for those college teammates to be able to experience this together as well. And to do both is just incredible. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Jalen Brunson's a Bulldog, former Maverick. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that one, that's not as bad as Luka.
No.
That's not anywhere close to that level.
But they were on the same team together.
I mean, they could have signed him for less, yes. They could have offered him more, sure. But, yeah, that worked out for the best for him. That's for sure.
No doubt. Now, let's get to the poll results from our great audience. That's you. What should Sorsby do before the January 26th deadline? Join the supplemental draft, keep fighting the Big 12, and sit out the 2026 season. And 69% overwhelmingly said get into the supplemental draft if the NFL allows it.
You want to try that deadline one more time?
June 22nd.
January 22nd.
Well, January 22nd is when George Foreman fought Ali, I think, in a famous – go ahead.
Well, I think what should he do? I'm not surprised to see everybody's overwhelmingly saying he should join the supplemental draft. I don't think he's going to willingly sit out the 2026 season under any circumstance. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say what should he do. In my opinion, I think he should go ahead and join the supplemental draft, but I totally understand from his perspective, continuing to fight and rolling with the decision that you were given that allows you to play. So yeah, selfishly, I would like to see him, I think, join the supplemental draft, and we decide like no more, like there's never going to be this wild card judge's decision in the future. It's going to be made black and white, plain and clear as day. Like this is not something that you're able to still play, but we'll see what happens. So not surprised at all, though, the supplemental draft is the overwhelming choice.
I think overwhelming choice, and most people hoping he does and wanting them to.
Yeah.
Lastly, thank you very much for all of this. Andrew, let's go to the last poll question. I answered this, but I didn't really have an answer that would have been my favorite. What is your dream summer weekend escape? Camping in the woods, boating on a lake, chilling at the beach, relaxing in the backyard?
The latter two. Not much of a camper or a boater. So yeah, give me the beach, or just give me a nice relaxing backyard setup and enough internet connection nearby to watch whatever sports are on or what have you. And yeah, I'm good at the beach. I'm good in the backyard. Those would definitely be my top two answers.
Yeah, I would, out of all of those, if I was like, if you had like a cabin in the woods, like in the mountains, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool.
So like camping in the woods, sort of.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I'd want to be doing that with like just a tent.
Dealing with the mosquitoes and all that. Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of that either. But
I don't see a golf trip on there. I don't know why that's not in it. But again, I didn't ask the question. 42% chilling at the beach. I could get that. Would be the favorite without question. One more super chat to put up. No, take that. What in God's name? Take it down, please.
Yeah. We're having so much fun.
Sometimes there's a sense of humor that is not a sense of humor, but that's attaching something to tech that to me is a little bit bizarre, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, appreciate it regardless. Everybody that's been watching today and a part of the show, and we'll be back tomorrow with plenty more of the same. And I'm sure there will be, if Trey Wallace's interview was any indication, there will be more to talk about with Brennan Sorsby and whatever the next level of reaction is. Next level of reaction is either by the Big 12 or by Texas Tech itself, or whatever other party decides to join in. Maybe Ken Paxton's got something to say again tomorrow, or Jeffrey Kessler or Charlie Baker or whoever, but we'll definitely be talking about that and whatever else is going on to some degree.
Yeah, we'll set up our guest. I'm sure Shahan will be a part of it. John McClain, Craig's Off the Radar, and more. Rez, thank you. Michelangelo Flores, also thanks to Houston Hall, Garrett Ross, Logan Bagessi, and Andrew Valade for being a part of what they do for us every single day. Appreciate you watching 365 Sports, or when you do on Twitter as well. Craig, have a great night. Good to see you. I'm David Smoke. This is 365 Sports, and good night. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
For anyone that's in the car buying mode or looking for a car right now, or a truck, I would definitely come by Allen Samuels, get to know the people here like I have, how well I'm taking care of the dealership, and how well service and any kind of warranty issues and those sort of things. Because of the way they take care of me, it's made me a Ram driver. I said I don't think they'd want to go anywhere else if they came here.
Like Allen Samuels always said, Waco has a lot to offer, and so do we at Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.